To call to order the Emeryville Planning Commission meeting on Thursday, March 24th, 2022. Frank, could you call the roll for us, please?
Commissioner Chafe.
Here.
Commissioner Dram has an excused absence until about 8 p.m. Commissioner Gitzoni.
Here.
Commissioner Simons.
Here.
Commissioner Zepko.
Present.
Vice Chair Mendez.
Here.
And Chair Keller.
Here.
So we have a quorum of 6 commissioners present.
Very good. And on to item 3, if you will do the resolution declaring the need for a planning commission to continue to meet remotely in order to ensure the health and safety of the public.
Thank you, Chair Keller. I would like to state for the record that this meeting is being conducted by teleconference pursuant to newly enacted California Assembly Bill 361. The city was previously complying with the Brown Act orders issued by the governor, which were aimed at containing the novel coronavirus and which expired on September 30th. This new bill gives local agencies the authority to continue to host virtual meetings until January 1st, 2024, as long as California is under a governor-declared state of emergency. In order to continue meetings subject to this exemption to the Brown Act, the Planning Commission must make findings by majority vote no later than 30 days after it starts using the exemption and every 30 days thereafter, and will do so at this meeting and until the governor lifts the state of emergency. City Hall is open to the public during regular business hours, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The planning and building counters have different hours. Please check or make an appointment before visiting. The agenda states that the public may view the meeting that is being live streamed online and on ETV Channel 27 and provide comment by submitting an online comment form, which will then be read into the record by staff. The comment form can be accessed by going to our main City of Emeryville Planning Commission webpage and clicking on the link entitled Submit an Online Speaker Card. The public also has the option of participating in tonight's meeting via Zoom and may provide public comment during the meeting using the raise your hand feature visible on your screen, or if you are calling in, press *9. The Zoom call-in information was provided on the posted agenda as well as via e-notification and on social media. At this time, I would like to go to item 3, as Chair Keller just read the title of. The required findings are contained in this resolution. And with your permission, Chair Keller, I would now like to ask for a motion and a second on this resolution.
Thank you. Very good. Can we have a motion on the item?
I'll make a motion.
In a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
On the motion, Commissioner Chafe.
Nope. Oh, okay.
Commissioner Chafe.
Aye.
Commissioner Dram is absent right now. Commissioner Gitzoni.
Aye.
Commissioner Simons.
Aye.
Commissioner Zepko.
Aye.
Vice Chair Mendez.
Aye.
And Chair Keller.
Aye.
6 ayes, the resolution is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. On to item 4, public comment. Now is the time for anyone in the public who would like to address the commission on any item not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak with us, we have a 3-minute limit and you could raise your hand. Or Charlie, have you received any speaker cards?
I have.
Okay.
I have received 1 online speaker card for general comments. And let me also check attendees. Okay. I will read the speaker card into the record. This is from Ben Donahue, 40 Broderick Street, San Francisco. He says, "Hi there, I'm a San Francisco resident who works in Emeryville. I've been very impressed by the messaging coming from Emeryville city government lately. There seems to be a genuine desire to build housing and promote green transportation. However, the implementation of this mentality is completely falling flat. On the March 24th, 2022 planning meeting agenda, there are 3 projects up for discussion. If all 3 are approved, Emeryville will build 500,000 plus square feet of office space, 1,000 parking spaces, but only 68 units of housing. And this current docket of projects is far from an aberration. By my count, there are 3 other large office projects under discussion, each of which would add hundreds of parking spots. Meanwhile, there are no major housing projects in the planning pipeline. If Emeryville continues to build office space without an equivalent amount of housing, it will be disastrous for the city's housing affordability and will pressure poorer residents out. This is exactly what has happened in San Francisco, and it seems Emeryville is not learning from my city's mistakes. Additionally, Emeryville cannot be serious in tackling climate change if it continues to permit thousands of new parking spots. There has been an outpouring of support for Emeryville's new urbanist tack. Now is the time to walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. And that concludes his comment.
Very good, thank you.
Let me just double check my email to see if I've received any more online speaker cards. I have not, and I do not see any raised hands among the attendees. So I believe that concludes the public comment.
Very good. We'll close this section of the Planning Commission agenda. And Charlie, is there Valerie Bernardo who's joined us? Is that a staff person or?
Yes, she's a staff member.
Okay, very good. So the item 5 is the approval of the action minutes from our February 24th meeting, 2022. Are there any corrections or alterations for that item? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And the
The
vote,
motion was by Commissioner Chafe and the second by Commissioner Gitzoni
correct?
to approve the minutes. Commissioner Chafe,
Aye.
Commissioner Graham is absent. Commissioner Gitzoni,
Aye.
Commissioner Simons,
Aye.
Commissioner Zepko,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mendez,
Aye.
Chair Keller.
Aye.
6 ayes, the minutes are approved. Thank you.
Very good. And now we're done writing. You could give us your Community Development Director's report, please.
Thank you, Chair Keller. First, with regard to recent City Council actions, the Council has met twice since your last meeting on February 24th, and those Council meetings were on March 1st and March 15th. On March 1st, the Council approved an annual cabaret license for Rudy's Can't Fail Cafe. They also approved a $50,000 pilot program for public art community grants with a maximum of $10,000 per grant to augment the existing community grant program to be funded by the Art in Public Places Fund beginning in the next fiscal year, 2022-23. And related to that, the Council also approved the annual community grants awards for this fiscal year, 2021-22, with a total of $73,497 awarded to 10 organizations. And the Council approved a contract with our new city attorney, John Kennedy, who started work the next day on March 2nd. John is a seasoned municipal attorney, having served 26 years with the city attorney's office in the city and county of San Francisco, where he was most recently assigned to the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, or MTA. I want to take this opportunity to welcome John to the City of Emeryville team, and also to assure the Commission that we will continue to have the stellar services of Special Counsel Christy Crowell for the foreseeable future. And on March 15th, the Council approved the 2021 General Plan Annual Progress Report and authorized its submittal to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, which will occur later this week prior to the April 1st deadline. As the Commission will recall, you recommended approval of this report at your last meeting. The Council considered a noise waiver request for work on 3 Saturdays at the Bayview Apartments, currently under construction at 6701 Shellmount Street. After hearing public comments concerning previous noise ordinance violations at the site, the Council denied the request. The Council approved a letter of support for the San Pablo Avenue multimodal project, currently proposed by the Alameda County Transportation Commission, ACTC, which will involve removal of all parking on San Pablo Avenue and the installation of bike and bus only lanes from downtown Oakland to Russell Street in Berkeley. And finally, the Council adopted the first reading of an ordinance amending the Emeryville Municipal Code to add provisions on a right to recall for hotel and cardroom employees, which requires covered employers to rehire employees laid off due to COVID in order of seniority. And in other news, I just want to let you all know about a community meeting that's coming up next week on the Active Transportation Plan, or ATP, which is what we now call, what we used to call the Pedestrian and Bicycle Plan. This community meeting will be on Wednesday, March 30th at noon via Zoom. And you can go to the project website at emeryvillemoves.org. That's Emeryville Moves, all one word, and there you can register for the meeting, check out the updated maps, and take the online survey. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Very good. Thank you much. Do any commissioners have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 7, the disclosure of ex parte communication and identifications of conflict of interest. Since we have quite a few tonight, what I'll do is call on everybody one at a time. You can do your announcement if you have any. So shall we start with Commissioner King?
Thank you, Chair. So on the Emery Station Overland item, I need to recuse myself because I own real property within 1,000 feet of the project site. I think I can give more details at that time, right? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Gitzoni. You're on mute. Commissioner Gitzoni, you're on mute.
Sorry there.
There
I
you
need
are.
to recuse myself on item 9.3. One of the parties is a client of my employer.
Thank you. And Commissioner Simons?
I have no ex parte communications and I have no conflicts of interest.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Zepko?
No ex parte communication, no recusals.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Mendez?
Yes, so I will be recusing myself from items 8.2, 9.2, and 9.3. The applicants are a client of my employer, and therefore it's a source of income for me.
Very good, thank you. And I will need to be recusing myself from item 9.3, the Base Air Life Sciences Project, as it's within 500 feet of my rural residence. And we'll get more details when that item comes up. So because myself and Vice Chair Mendez will have to recuse ourselves on item 9.3 at this time.
And also Commissioner Gitzoni.
Oh, that's right, and because and so we're hopefully that Commissioner Dram will be here at that time. But at this time, what we need to do is to appoint a presiding official, since both the chair and vice chair have to recuse. So we need to appoint somebody, and if I can be so brave, I'd like to volunteer Commissioner Chafe, if she's so willing to manage that item for us. If not, I'll take an alternate, but I'm seeing her head shake, so you're willing to do that for us?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Charlie, so do we need to take a vote on that?
Well, the rules say you're supposed to elect a presiding officer, so I would suggest that you take a roll call vote on that.
Okay, so on the item to elect Commissioner Chafe as our presiding officer for item 9.3, would you all call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Chafe.
Aye.
Commissioner Dram is absent. Commissioner Gitzoni.
Aye.
Commissioner Simons.
Aye.
Commissioner Zepko.
Aye.
Vice Chair Mendez.
Aye.
And Chair Keller.
Aye.
6 ayes. Congratulations, Commissioner Chafe. You will be presiding over item 9.3.
And thank you so much for accepting that. Okay, so now we can move on to the first of our public hearings, item 8.1, which is the Bayview Master Sign Program.
And Assistant Planner Annalisa Garcia will be presenting this item.
Great. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight I will be presenting the Bayview Apartments Master Sign Program. Bayview Apartments Master Sign, well, the Bayview Apartments are located at 6701 Shellmount Street. And I'm frozen. So the Planning Commission approved resolution number UPDR 14003 in March of 2016 for the construction of a 7-story residential building at 6701 Shellmount Street. The site is bounded by I-80 by the I-80 off-ramp to the west and north, Shellmount Street and Railroad to the east, and the Expression Campus to the south. The Master Sign Program proposes specific standards for signage and establishes entry, wayfinding, and building identification signs, and defines permitted sign materials, colors, color palette, and illumination. There are no changing tenant signs proposed in this Master Sign Program, so the signs that you see will be the signs that are installed. The Master Sign Program allows for 3 different sign types, including a high-rise identification sign, wall signs, and a monument sign. So they've provided a sign legend here, as well as a table that indicates the location of each sign and the sign type proposed. They've also provided a table indicating each sign type that's proposed, as well as the maximum allowable square sign area and the proposed square footage. So they're proposing an entry monument sign here at the corner. You can see the key plan insert there. It is an illuminated monument sign, and it is proposed at 10 feet high. Our regulations allow for 6 feet, so they're seeking the additional height. And the sign is about 29 square feet in sign area. They're also proposing an illuminated wall sign, a wayfinding sign to the parking garage, and it is a 30 square foot wall sign. They're proposing an 81 square foot illuminated high-rise sign. It is approximately 80 feet in height measured to the top of the sign. And I have a day and night rendering for us to follow. The address sign here is 10 square feet. It'll be halo lit. They're proposing just one of these. Okay, not sure where my rendering went, but the applicant will be able to provide us with that. So if you can make the findings for the Master Sign Program, whether the sign promotes visual harmony and relates well to the architectural features of the building. As well as a design review findings in terms of applicable design guidelines, if it's high quality design and will not adversely affect the surrounding area. So staff recommends approval of the proposed Bayview Apartments Master Sign Program subject to the conditions of approval. The applicant is available for questions and has a presentation to follow. So if you have any questions for me now, that concludes my presentation.
Very good, thank you, Lisa. Any commissioners have any questions for staff? Okay, I do not see any. So would the applicant like to give us their presentation?
I'm going to go ahead and promote the attendee, the applicants. Let's see. Right.
Good evening. I'm Adam Burrows, and I am the sign designer for this sign program.
Can you, excuse me, sir, can you hang on just a second?
Sure.
I don't see Stephen Clark in the attendees. He was given to me as one of the names of the applicant team. Is he among you?
Actually, just tonight, it will be me, Adam Burrows, and Carol Schwartz from Kell,
Okay.
multi-housing. Steve was unable to attend tonight.
All right, fine. Then all of the applicant team has been promoted.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everybody. I'll try to make this as quick as possible, be mindful of everybody's time here. If you allow me to share my screen here. I do have the elusive renderings in this package, so the day night renderings. So we'll get to those in just a second here. I really just want to take the time to just walk through the basic sign types that we have for the project, and keep in mind that this is the totality of these signs. There will not be any future signs or tenant signage or retail signage added later. All of these signs are intended to be primarily used for building identification and wayfinding for first-time visitors and fire life safety. So this first sign type that you're showing here is located on the southeast corner of Shellmount and the project. And you'll notice here that the sign, we did ask for a little bit more height. And the reason for that is there's very limited space for where we can put this sign in the ground due to the location of the utilities along the frontage road there as required. So what we've done is actually turned a horizontal sign on its side, making it vertical, which gives us better view. It has a minimal footprint and it can be seen easily over any parked cars that are on the street there. The sign also is internally illuminated with low-glow LED illumination. So the word Bayview will light up at night, but it is intended to be very subtle and not in any way a retail sign. It's much more of a residential or hospitality style signage. And then one last feature that I really enjoy about the design of this is that you'll see here that the sculptural nature of this sign has an opening in it that allows you to view right through the sign in there, which ties into the overall placemaking and story for the Bayview Apartments. And I'll just go ahead and continue with the presentation unless anybody has any questions. So the next sign type that we have here is the parking garage entry signage. Now this is located towards the interior of the project, and it just identifies the entry to the parking garage, and most importantly, allows for identification of both the exit and entrance in the garage and the closed part to make sure the vehicles do not collide with the roof upon entering. And this also will help with any unnecessary U-turns or traffic congestions in that tight area. But this is a sign that is not viewable from the public right of way. Actually faces the building next door in the alleyway. Again, there is some low-glow LED illumination built into the lettering, and it's really just to have these signs visible at night. It's not intended for any retail identification or advertising purposes. The next sign type is going to be our project ID wall sign. And this is a sign that identifies the building to the entire city and adjacent freeway. It is intended to be viewed by first-time visitors and motorists along the freeway, and to help guide the visitors into the site. And it's the start of our kind of breadcrumb trail of wayfinding, so to speak. So first-time motorists will see this sign as they're exiting the freeway. And again, this sign is intended to be viewable at night, so there is some illumination in there, but again, it's low-glow, not intended to be retail-oriented. And so you come across this sign as you're exiting the road there, heading towards the entrance to the project. And here is our daytime rendering of what that sign will look like. So you'll see it's very much in line with the architecture of the building and is intended to be integrated as opposed to be a plant on to the building face there. And we also have the night rendering here, so you can see that the glow of the signage is to no more private than any of the windows in the building frontage there. The next sign you would see as you're approaching the project would just be a simple outdoor sign that's really in the optimal position to be viewed by first-time visitors and fire life safety. There is illumination built into the sign. It's a halo illumination, which means at night just the outer edges of the letters will be glowing. It'll be easily visible from the street, but again, it does not experience light pollution. And the entrance to the building is actually right in this general area as well. So it really works to indicate that building entrance and, guide the first-time visitors and anybody from fire life safety. And the monument sign that we looked at the beginning of this presentation is to the left-hand side there. So you get identification from both sides of the street. And then the last piece here is you can see the totality of the signage on the building. It's very minute in scale with the building, but adequate for wayfinding and identification as I've presented here. And again, just want to remind everybody that this is all the signs that will ever be at this site, and we're hoping that they will last to be a timeless design and added beautification to the city. And I'll open up for questions if anybody's have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. So as everyone comes on, I see Vice Chair Mendez is here. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Che?
No questions, thanks.
Commissioner Simons?
No questions for me.
Commissioner Zepko?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay, I believe that, Commissioner Gitzoni?
No questions.
Thank you. I just have one question. Because this rendering is good, just keep up right here. Because the parking is kind of out of sight, it's kind of in an alley between the existing storage building and your building. Did you not feel it was important to have any kind of wayfinding for people to find the parking entrance?
We did consider that, and we actually thought about adding some additional signs up on the facade of the building that would bring people in. But after studying it further, we realized that the entrance, which is on the far side of this rendering here, is close enough to the monument sign that we have at the corner that it provides almost a beacon and an inviting entryway into that alley for a motorist. And it's also really nice for at night that it's kind of well illuminated there. And it would keep, any undesirables or anybody hanging around that area at night for when, the residents are coming and going right there. So we added extra parking directionals because, again, it's not really a retail site. And for the most part, everybody goes on a quick basis that lives there unless it's their friends or family or visitors coming over.
Okay, very good then. So not seeing any other questions, we will move on. This is a study session, but we can open it up to the public.
Chair Kell, correction, this is a public hearing.
A public hearing, okay. And so what we'd like to do is open it up and see if there are any public comments at this time.
I have received no online speaker cards. I will check one more time. I don't see any.
Any raised
I did
hands?
not see any raised hands among the attendees.
Okay. All right, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the commission for commissioner comments. Commissioner Gitzoni, any comments?
I have no comments.
Okay. Vice Chair Mendez.
No comments, just wanted to say that I think it was tastefully done and the right amount of signage is provided.
Perfect. Okay. Commissioner Chief.
No comments.
Commissioner Zepko.
No comments.
Simons.
No comments.
Very good. Okay. I'll agree with Vice Chair Mendez. I think it's tasteful. I think it's just enough. I don't mind the extra height along Shellmount Street because it's a fairly tall building. I think it's in proportion, and I really believe in wayfinding, and I think getting people to their destination without having to drive around is really important. So I think that this is understated, tasteful, I like the font used. I like the fact that the monument sign's kind of cut out to kind of lighten the weight of it. So I think it's overall very good. I just, like you said, most people coming into the driveway will live there. And I'm just wondering about new residents. So hopefully there'll be a way for them to find a way to park so they can come in and view the apartments. But otherwise, I think it's fine. I think it's something that if you find that people aren't finding the garage, that are first-time tenants or looking for apartment, we can come back and revisit maybe putting in a directional sign for parking. But I'm going to leave it to your expertise. If you don't feel it's needed, we'll go along with that. So I don't have any further comments. So can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Bayview Apartment Master Sign Program, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
Perfect. Thank you. And a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Director Bryant, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Moved by Vice Chair Mendez. Was that second by Commissioner Gitzoni?
Correct.
On the motion, Commissioner Chafe.
Aye.
Commissioner Dranham is absent. Commissioner Gitzoni.
Aye.
Commissioner Simons.
Aye.
Commissioner Zepko.
Aye.
Vice Chair Mendez.
Aye.
And Chair Keller.
Aye.
6 ayes, the application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. You guys are really making headway. I sit here at my work desk and look out at you. You guys are building this building faster than anything I've seen in Emeryville. So I'm really happy. I can't wait till it's done.
We are too.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to item 8.2, the Nora Davis Transit Center sign. And staff.
This is also Assistant Planner Annalisa Garcia.
Charlie, I'm gonna have to recuse myself. Should I announce it right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you have to recuse yourself from this?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know.
And this is because?
This is because the client, Wareham Development, is a client of my employer, therefore a source of income for me.
Thank you.
Okay, at least. Okay, good.
All right, let me get this situated. Good evening. Tonight I'm presenting for Planning Commission consideration the proposed Nora Davis Emeryville Transit Center sign. This is located at the existing Emeryville Amtrak station at 5885 Horton Street. And Wareham Development would like to name the station after former City Council member Nora Davis to express appreciation for her role as an active supporter of the public-private partnerships between Wareham and the City of Emeryville. So again, the site location is at the existing Emeryville Amtrak station, adjacent to Horton and 59th Street. The Nora Davis proposed entry gateway sign would be on the east elevation fronting Horton Street, and a sign that does not currently exist. So this is not replacing a sign, it is a proposed new sign. It is a 30 square foot in sign area illuminated sign with a height of about 16 feet. And here we have a day and night rendering. And it's one sign, so that's all we have to look at. And so if you can make the design review findings that the proposed sign is no more than necessary and no larger than necessary, it keeps with the visual character of the area. And staff recommends approval subject to the conditions of approval. And I will pull up that sign just for visual and let me know if you have any questions. The applicant is also here for questions and would like to speak.
Very good, thank you. So I just have a clarifying question. Looking at this sign, and maybe it's for a point of reference, but it's going to look very similar to the sign on the opposite side of the building that says Emeryville that faces the tracks. So the illumination would be similar to that in the look?
Yes.
Yeah, That's the way it looked to me. Okay, thank you.
You're
Any other questions from the commission or staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So this was phrased as naming the station after Nora Davis, and I was just wondering what the protocol is. So this is a private building, and so therefore it doesn't require the involvement of the city at all? Because I'm remembering that there was a discussion over renaming a street recently. I was just curious the background on that.
That's correct, Commissioner Chafe. This is a privately owned building, and this is a private sign application by a private applicant, so we are processing it the same as we would any other sign application.
Thank you. That's it.
Good question, thanks. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any. Would the applicant like to make the presentation or speak?
Okay, give me a second. I'm sorry, I need to promote them. Oops. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Okay. I believe I have promoted everyone who is on the applicant team.
All righty, very good. You guys can go ahead and take the floor.
Hello, Commissioners. I think this is Jeffrey Heller. I was the architect for the station and designed the sign. I think Rich Robbins might want to introduce it first. You have to unmute, Rich.
There we go. Sorry. This idea came about several years ago, and I don't know if all of you know who Nora was, but she probably was the single most important force in Emeryville in the 90s and the 2000s in her public service on every commission and every aspect of life. While she was alive, she refused the honor, and she, with John Flores, had more to do with us being privileged enough to persuade Amtrak to come to the old Chevron site and tie in intermodal transit to the Emeryville community. It also tied into the founding of the Emery Go-Round. And Nora was just a very, very special person. She was a force, as I said. Even when you disagreed with her, and that would be often, you knew she was only caring about the community and the benefit of the community. And so we would like to go forward with this sign. Obviously, Jeff Heller has already spoken and will speak. He was the architect of the award-winning station when it was built, and we wanted to mimic it in every which way. But essentially what this is honoring the intermodal transit, but more importantly, a person who deserves incredible honors for the quality of life in Emeryville.
I might add, again, this is Jeffrey Heller, and next year will be 30 years since we did this project. And I think it's worn well. I enjoyed working on it and the surrounding buildings for Rich Robbins. Commissioner Keller mentioned appropriately about the relationship of the sign to the Emeryville, and that's exactly what we did. We're using the same palette metallic letters with neon to match, and the horizontal support bar is in the same color as the canopy. Also, it'll be low-key in intensity. It won't be bright, and it will, with the canopy, fit very nicely help announce the station as you approach it. And with that, happy to answer questions, of course, and very pleased to be able to be doing this. It really is meant to integrate with the design of the station as if it was there as part of it from the beginning.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any commissioners that have questions for the applicant? Okay, I don't see any. So since this is a public hearing, we will now open the meeting to public comment. If there's anyone like to speak to the commission or to this item, they will have 3 minutes. And Director Bryant, do we have any speaker cards or any raised hands?
I have just rechecked my email and I do not see any online speaker cards for this item. I also do not see any raised hands among the attendees.
Very, very good. We will close the public comment or public hearing part of the meeting and bring it back to the commission. Are there any commissioners wishing to make comment or ask questions at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Gitsani. Commissioner Gitsani, you're on mute. There you are.
I'll just say that it looks really nice. It's a beautiful building, and I think that fits in nicely with it.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, I would just like to say I think it looks very good. I'm not surprised that Councilmember Davis did not want this during her time on this planet. She was way too conservative with herself and too modest. I do agree that she was an amazing force, and I really do think she did amazing things for the city. I really do appreciate that you guys are recognizing her in this way. I think it's totally appropriate, and it's really nice. I think it's tastefully done. It looks really good, so I'm really happy you're doing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further comments, then we'll go ahead and receive a motion and a second, please. I'll make the motion. I would be happy to make the motion for this. A second. Let's to bring in a line from Nora. She would always say, "Can we move this along?" So can we have a second? It's one of my favorite sayings of hers. I just need a second on the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And vote.
Right, moved by Chair Keller and seconded by Commissioner Simons. Commissioner Chafe?
Aye.
Commissioner Graham is absent. Commissioner Gitsoni?
Aye.
Commissioner Simons?
Aye.
Commissioner Zepko?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mendez is recused. Chair Keller?
Aye.
5 ayes. This application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alrighty, now we're going on to the study sessions. I had our agenda reversed earlier. So item 9.1 is 4300 San Pablo intergenerational affordable housing.
Right, and once again, Assistant Planner Annalisa Garcia will be presenting this item.
Oh, you're giving her a lot of work.
You bet.
I'm back.
Good to have you back.
Thanks. So as stated, I will be presenting on the 4300 San Pablo Affordable Apartment Project. And this is a study session. So the site location are 2 parcels to the east of San Pablo Avenue, on the corner between 43rd and 45th Street. To the north are the Emeryville affordable apartments. And the existing building on site is to be demolished. So in April 2017, the City Council adopted resolution number 1751, designating the city-owned property as an affordable senior rental housing development site. Staff was authorized to issue a request for qualifications proposal. Several potential developers expressed concern over financial feasibility due to FAR and density constraints. In turn, staff proposed amendments to the general plan and planning regulations to increase the maximum development potential. In October of 2018, the City Council adopted Resolution number 18153, amending the general plan to increase the maximum development potential, and the planning regulations were subsequently amended for consistency. In December of 2018, the City Council directed staff to reconsider the site to provide multi-generational housing rather than solely senior housing. In March and April of 2019, staff presented the concept of intergenerational housing to the Commission on Aging and the Housing Committee. These meetings resulted in the City Council approving modifications of the RFP for the development of an affordable senior or intergenerational rental housing project. And in September 28th, 2021, State Bill 591 was signed into law, authorizing the establishment of intergenerational housing development. And we can speak more to this after the presentation. In July 2020, the City Council approved EAH Housing as a selected developer of the project, and the city entered an exclusive right to negotiate agreement. The lease disposition and development agreement remains underway as EAH continues to advance project design drawings. As part of the agreement, the applicant will be holding 2 Planning Commission study sessions, as well as committee meetings with the Committee of Aging and the Housing Committee, and community meetings to get community feedback, and then they'll go back and revise the project once we've gotten input from everyone. So the project will be approved under SB 35, which mandates ministerial approval, and AB 1763 also applies to the project, and there's no density limit for the project because it's within 1/2 mile of transit. So under SB 35, the development project may be subject only to objective design review standards, and there are no findings and no conditions of approval. The analysis is yes or no of the project's compliance with development standards. So we're really seeking your feedback, but this isn't the typical planning commission meeting where we're asking you to review the project for design and subjective development standards. The project proposal is to demolish the existing structure on the parcels, which equate to about 1/2 acre, and construct a 5-story building with 68 affordable residential units. 54 of those units will be allocated for seniors, and 14 units will be allocated to transition age youth. There will be 9,680 square feet of amenity space. They're proposing 22 parking spaces for vehicles and 68 long-term bicycle parking spaces, which equates to 1 per unit. So this is the current site as seen from San Pablo and as well from the intersection of San Pablo and 43rd Street. And here is the rendering of the proposed building. So for zoning, they are requesting a waiver for FAR. Our base FAR is 1.5, and they're proposing about 3.2. The proposed building height is 62 feet, whereas we have a 40-foot base height, but a 30-foot height bonus is allowed for 100% affordable projects. The residential density is 50 dwelling units per acre as a base, and 145 dwelling units are proposed. Again, there's unlimited density for 100% affordable projects. As you know, we do not have a vehicular parking minimum, but 22 parking spaces are proposed. 68 long-term spaces are proposed. Short-term spaces were not included in this proposal. That detail may be coming at a future rendering. So they're proposing a waiver for unit mix. Here we have the column showing the Emeryville requirements. The applicant is proposing 66% studios, 28% 1-bedrooms, and 6% 2-bed or larger. The Emeryville requirements are waived because this is a ministerial approval. They're also proposing waivers for setbacks and open space. As you can see here, the street side setback would normally be 10 feet. They are proposing 6 feet. The rear yard setback is 74 feet. That's exponentially increased due to the increase in height, and they're proposing 6 feet. For common open space, they're proposing 3,305 square feet, and this will be in the courtyard. The private open space that they're providing will be from the balconies that are proposed in 26 of the units. Well, here we have the proposed first floor plan, which will consist of parking and amenity space. That includes bicycle parking as well, and the discards. On the second level, they'll have 14 units as well as courtyard and amenity space. And then levels 3 through 5 will accommodate 18 units each. So that concludes my presentation. Does the commission have any feedback regarding the overall project, specifically in regards to the waivers? The applicant will be presenting following this if you have questions for them as well. But for starters, I'm available.
Okay, thank you very much. And looks like Commissioner Simons has a question.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Chair Keller. Thank you so much, Annalisa, for the presentation. I have a question about the process. Is it normal for cities to ask for these 2 additional community feedback sessions? It seems like there'd be a big value in getting vulnerable people into homes 60 nights sooner or 90 nights sooner based on the time we're going to spend reviewing this. And I'd also just love to know, if we do one of these projects with no city council sessions, no review, just what we're going to get. Maybe it's going to be great, maybe it's not, but I'd really love to run an experiment or 2, seeing how that goes. So I was wondering if you could talk about how that was all negotiated and if we're going to see that in similar SB 35-ish projects in the future.
I believe this project is a little different because it is a city-owned project, so we kind of have more, more of a hands-on approach here, and would like to get the community feedback. I don't know of other SB 35 projects seeking that sort of feedback.
I guess I would just love to get people in homes as quickly as possible, and then every day for people who are unhoused makes a really big difference. So just some feedback on that, but otherwise, seems great. Thank you.
Chair Keller, could I embellish a little bit?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Simons, I don't believe that these study sessions are elongating the process. Staff is still in the process of negotiating the lease disposition and development agreement, as Annalisa indicated. And then they will eventually have to prepare construction drawings, which will also, take some time. So I don't believe that this community input process is significantly delaying construction. I would also note that if it's a typical affordable housing project, they're going to have to be cobbling together funding from a variety of sources. I'm not sure that's all been done yet. I can't recall if you were on the commission when the 3600 San Pablo Avenue project was presented for study sessions, which ultimately was administratively approved. But it took them a while to get the funding they needed, long after those study sessions were over, before they were able to begin construction drawings. I don't know if Chad or Valerie wants to add anything to that.
No, thank you, Charlie. That actually was exactly what I was going to allude to. That because it is a city-sponsored project, we wanted to make sure that we did get community feedback, but as Charlie mentioned, we're still in the process of negotiating the land lease disposition agreement, and we're really trying to tie the 2 together. We're working really fast to try to get that finalized in the next couple of months, which is why we're having these meetings now. But we still think it's an important value to get some feedback from the community, but we do still have some time. Financing, applications for financing won't occur for the project probably till later in the fall and early part of next year, but I appreciate the desire to move quicker. I think you also had a question, and I'm not 100% sure how to answer it in regards to if there wasn't a process to get feedback from the community or the commission, what kind of project we would get. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I was basically just wondering, I think in theory, magic of SB 35 is you just get to go and do it and build homes for people who need them. And I think none of us on the commission know what that's going to look like. Maybe it's going to be great, maybe it's going to be terrible. So I'm hoping we can run some experiments and see, and that can guide us and other state policymakers as we're crafting housing policy in the future. But I don't need a response on that.
Well, I can add a brief response, which I think is to your point, which is we have a parallel project going on right now. Navarre Oaks, our associate planner, who has no items on tonight's agenda, so you do not see them tonight, but you all know Navarre. They are working on a project to develop objective development standards, and the specific reason for that is to facilitate projects such as SB 35 projects. And those development standards are intended to make sure that we don't get projects that we don't want. These standards would hopefully result in desirable projects addressing the attributes the city wants. We've already had a study session with the Planning Commission and the City Council on the objective standards and what they should address. And we will be bringing those back to you later this year for you to look at. So hopefully you can rest assured that SB 35 projects of the future will be exemplary in their design because they will have to comply with our objective development standards.
Excellent. Thanks so much, everyone. That's super useful information.
Very good. Good questions and good answers, everyone. Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Vice Chair Mendez.
Yeah, I have two questions. Annalise, thank you for the presentation. And one of these questions might be for the applicant or the designer. But my first question is, what's going to happen with the Family Matters shelter? Are they going to be working out of the ground floor from there, or?
I can answer that if you like. So the Family Matters shelter was a temporary solution, and the shelter itself has already been relocated to Oakland.
Okay.
Currently, we did extend the license, and it was assigned to Building Futures. They're using it as just an office space at this point. And that's just temporary as well.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, I was just wondering if there's more information on what's gonna go into the amenity space. Right now it's just kind of like blocked off. I don't know if there's any information now so early in the project.
I would say that the applicant probably can address that a little bit. We're still in the process of working through that, but they'll have a little bit more information to provide on that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Those are my only two questions.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I just have a kind of a clarifying question or just a point of understanding. The structures that are there now, it's not actually buildings so much that has to be demolition, but portable buildings, are they not portables?
They're portable, yes.
Yeah, so demolition should be a lot cleaner and easier than you would if you were demolishing an existing building. So that's good to know. Okay, that's all we had. So if the applicant would like to come forward and give us their presentation.
Okay, I have promoted the people on the applicant team. There's somebody named Lily with a long last name who I do not see in the attendee list, but there's also another person from KTGY Architecture, so I assume that Jessica Music will be representing the architect. And they should be on the panel all now.
Thank you, and thank you, Annalisa, for that report, and thank you, Chad and Valerie, for being such amazing partners as we've worked on this development. And thank you for taking the time for this planning, this study session here tonight. We're excited to hear your thoughts. My name is Bianca Newman. I am the Director of Business Development at EH Housing, and here with me this evening are Steve Cott and Jessica Music, who is the project architect from KTGY. For those of you unfamiliar with EH Housing, we're a fully integrated developer, property manager, and service provider. The organization is 54 years old. We were founded in 1968. We operate throughout California and Hawaii with a portfolio of over 100 developments and 8,400 affordable apartments, including Estrella Vistas right here in Emeryville, which is a 100% affordable family development, and it has 87 apartments within it. Let me just say that working with the city of Emeryville, again, has been wonderful. We appreciate your thoughtful approach and commitment to housing. Your willingness to move forward using the SB 35 process is really helpful in ensuring that we're able to move forward in a timely manner. The project at 4300 San Pablo is particularly special because it's on pace to be the first intergenerational housing, affordable housing development in California. And that's really thanks to the advocacy of many, including the city of Emeryville, to push forward SB 591. And just to comment back to the question that was asked on amenity space, well, because intergenerational housing is a newer concept, and especially in affordable housing and in California, we're really haven't dived in too deep on programming the amenity spaces because we've just brought in our TAY provider and our senior provider, and we really want to work with them and have some in-depth conversations to figure out what programming will look like on the site before we start to program out amenity space. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. The development team to date has received comments and direction from the Development Coordination Committee in advance of the study session, and we've started to integrate those updates, and we've hired the necessary consultants to address those concerns. We have not updated the plan set as of yet because we wanted to hear from the Planning Commission first. We additionally will be gathering input at some additional upcoming community meetings, including the Housing Committee on April 6th, and we'll be hosting a public forum on April 12th, as well as attending the Commission on the Aging meeting on April 13th. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to kind of briefly take you through our design approach on the site.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm going to try to share my screen, so bear with me for just a moment. And can everybody see a site aerial photo?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, a pleasure to be here tonight. I was fortunate enough to personally be on the project team that worked with EAH and the city of Emeryville on the Estrella Vista project. So I know what a great working relationship EAH has with the city, and just so excited to be brought to this project again. So just to remind everyone, this is our project site. We do sit next to the Emeryville apartments, which are 3 and 4 stories. As well as some existing single family 2 and 3 story homes. I wanted to highlight this just to show kind of our street edges, as well as some of the current parking conditions on both San Pablo and 43rd. Thank you, Bianca, for talking about kind of the amenity programming. We're excited to start to dive into these blank spaces, empty boxes with the EAH team. I know these are going to be really exciting amenities, and we can't wait to dive in. But right now, really looking to activate the San Pablo frontage with our operations and amenities, and then we have the opportunity for some larger amenity spaces at the rear and side of our site, with opportunities for glazing looking onto that side yard. Vehicular entry for the project will come off of 43rd, and that's on the right-hand side of the screen. And as has been stated, we're showing about 22 surface parking stalls kind of in a covered enclosed condition. Just to touch quickly on some of the upper levels, we are a combination of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. Something I did want to point out, though, is the project is being set up in a way that we could potentially be modular construction, or we can be stick-built construction. And this is important. It was an important part of the RFP to continue with this flexibility and provide EAH the ability to decide kind of what is going to be the most economical and feasible form of construction, as well as the most sustainable as the project continues. The major open space for our residents will be in this elevated courtyard that you see kind of at the top of the page. It's about a 4,000 square foot courtyard that we're currently working with our landscape architect, Jet and Associates, to create some really wonderful amenity spaces for our residents. Opening up onto that courtyard will be some interior space, and as Bianca mentioned, we're working on programming that space for our TAY and senior residents. I wanted to pull up some renderings, as I think we had some really beautiful renderings as part of the RFP process that weren't included in the staff report. But as the project has continued to evolve, and we've worked and received some feedback from our EAH team, this is what the current proposal is looking like. So you can see that activation down on the ground floor of San Pablo and the 4 levels of residential units above that ground level, amenity operations and parking spaces. You can also see the relationship that this building has to the existing context, the Emeryville apartments just off to the left and the existing single family conditions off to the right. And then coming down to a more of a pedestrian scale, this is standing at the corner of 43rd and San Pablo, looking at that ground level. We are anticipating having just a really nice active kind of street frontage, engaging with our uses and the use of a lot of warm materials. This project does have good sustainable goals, and we are designing for either Greenpoint rating or probably a LEED Silver kind of equivalency. And we, similar to Estrella Vista, we will be looking at things like drought tolerant landscaping, likely solar thermal water heating, photovoltaics on the roof, and just all of the things that we know will be important to not only our residents' kind of health and wellness, but to the kind of lasting, enduring qualities of this project. Just want to make sure I hit everything. I think that along with kind of Annalisa's presentation, this summarizes where we are to date. I will actually turn it back to Bianca. If there's any last thoughts, Bianca, otherwise I think we can open it up to questions and feedback.
Let's open it up to questions.
Alrighty, very good. Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions of the applicant from the Planning Commission? Okay, Commissioner Chafe.
Thank you so much for the presentations. I'm having a little bit of trouble envisioning the open space that's proposed. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's actually in a elevated courtyard condition. So it will occur at the second level of the project off of some resident amenity space. So it's about 13 feet or so off of the ground plane. It's kind of stretches the length of the building, so it's a long linear courtyard. It'll likely be somewhat passive just based off of its dimensions. So it'll have things like elevated kind of planter areas and landscape. There will be seating and more of again passive use. There may be the opportunity for some outdoor grilling or cooking for residents, but we'll again be working kind of with our TAY experts to help us program that outdoor space.
Just one follow-up question on that. So would it be open on the east side of the building then?
Correct. So there would be a guardrail height, and we can kind of talk about what that edge condition wants to be. Likely we would try to position some of our raised planters and landscaping closer to that edge in order to maintain some privacy for the existing residents. And a little bit of a buffer to kind of scale our building down. But yes, it's open. It's open onto 43rd to the east, and then I guess what would be to the north, Project North.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just maybe one more question at this point. Have you considered whether it would be possible to build a building all electric, so with no natural gas?
it's within our building standards that our buildings are all electric.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Vice Chair Mendez.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to Commissioner Chase's last one. Are there any sustainable elements that are planned into the project beyond what Kell Green requires?
Yeah, so I'd have to reference kind of the Kell Green kind of requirements and less, but I can name a couple things that I'm sure we will commit to, and similar to Estrella Vista. So I mentioned photovoltaics, and then I mentioned also the solar thermal heating. There are also some just inherent sustainable features that we're really working to include. You've noticed at the base of the project is this really warm natural material. Along with EAH, we're evaluating if we can do that as cross-laminated timber. I think time will tell if that makes the most economic and just honestly the most construction sense for the project, but that has just inherent sustainable qualities to it. From just kind of its natural beauty to the fact that it's a renewable resource, and it also decreases some disturbances during construction. So again, a feature that we are evaluating. Maybe Bianca or Steve, if you want to talk to anything that substandards that EEH would normally bring to their projects that are sustainable, that might be a good moment for you to chime in.
We'll be working to reach code, so there'll be EV charging and things in the building. And I think Jessica's touched on a lot of the things that we'll be doing. And like I said, we build to a LEED or green point standard, as well as aiming to be, we're planning right now to be all electric. And so I think, all of that isn't necessarily all figured out right now because this is schematic design, and we still need to go through design development and then, construction drawings. And so I think those things will become clearer as we push forward the design.
Thank you. That was my only question, and I'm glad you're thinking about it this early in the design.
Very good. Okay, anybody else? Alrighty, so let's bring it on to, this is a study session, but we can open it up for public comment at this time. Giving each public speaker 3 minutes. Do we have any speaker cards or raised hands, Charlie?
Let me double check my email. I see no new online speaker cards in my email. And in the attendees, I do not see any raised hands.
Alrighty, very good. We'll close the public comment period and we'll bring it back to the commission for comments. Commissioner Simons.
Thanks, Chair Keller. Not a lot of comments from me. I guess one thing is it would be I'm definitely on team afternoon, so it'd be nice to have the open space on the west facing side of the building. But I imagine the building is stepped back for the neighbors to the east. So that seems understandable and okay. Other than that, I know something we always ask about is space for cargo bikes. As someone who's always a day or two away from buying one, but hasn't quite pulled the trigger yet, I hope lots of folks in that building can get a chance to do that. And I can't wait to pair this with the great bus rapid transit that's coming on San Pablo. So just excited to have this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chase. Any questions?
Thanks so much for the presentation again. Exciting project. Maybe going off of Commissioner Simon's point, apologies if I missed it in the description, but have you thought about electric charging for bicycles in general in the plans? Because I think that's something that as rebates become more and more available, probably will become accessible to a greater proportion of the population. And hopefully there will be lots of need for it. And then other comment I had was just that it's great to see the open space built in. I had kind of a similar concern to Commissioner Simons just about sunlight. That was why I was asking, where it would be open to. I think maybe as the plans become clear, we'll get a better sense of what that looks like. But it is good that it's open on 43rd as well. So I don't really have any other comments at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Zupko.
Nothing for me, thanks.
All right, very good. And Commissioner Gitzoni?
Nothing for me besides say that I'm happy to see this project, and I hope that it goes well.
Very good. Okay, and did I miss anyone? Mr. Dram hasn't joined us yet, so I'd just like to say I think it's a really great project. I'm really, really excited that you're doing intergenerational. I have a friend that worked for CPS for quite a while, and youth leaving foster homes and getting out on their own is a very serious problem. And I know that inherently for what he has told me. So I think you guys providing spaces for these 18-year-old people who don't have families to get themselves established is commendable, and I think it's time. Having a mother that's 93 years old, I also know that senior housing is also very important. And I think that these people can learn from each other. I think the youth can help the older people maybe work on their computers or phones, and the older people can give them the wisdom of the ages. So I think blending these populations is really, really going to be a good thing. I'm really glad the state has finally saw their way to doing that. So just as a suggestion, you guys know your business better than I do, but having an aged parent and knowing the struggles for youth, I think that some of your active space could be used for senior activities. I know a lot of times my mother gets very bored. There's not a lot for her to do because she's not able to get around on her own. And I think for the youth, I think assistance in job training, job applying, doing resumes, etc., and also educational opportunities. I think those are things that you can do. You can also intermix things like computer classes with the youth and the seniors. I think that's an opportunity. So just some suggestions. I think that I saw that there were some balconies on the front of the building. If that's the case, I really think I would encourage doing those. I think the more outside space, the better. I think COVID taught us that we can't get out in the public sometimes, so just getting out and having our own personal space is really good. I really favor the modular construction if you can do that. I understand it's more of a cost thing, but I really support the idea of that. I love the wood and the warm materials. If you could do the laminated, I think that would just be amazing to see those cross support beams, the seismic bracing, and the pillar at the corner to be wood. If you can't do laminated, if you could do just like a wood veneer or something over the steel columns or something, just to keep that warmth going. And I like what looked like on the balconies, the Core-10 steel, perforated. I think that is a really warm, kind of modern product. So I think what you're showing us, I'd love to see that 100% if you could do it. I think that's just a very, very, probably one of the most attractive affordable buildings I've seen. I think you guys should be commended on that. I really support the green aspects you're trying to do, the all electric, the bay-friendly landscaping is kind of something we require, and I think the county also requires it, but I think everything you guys have mentioned that you're doing is commendable. We got to keep in mind this is all affordable housing. It's not for profit, so you guys have a lot more constraints in your finances, and people are already complaining that building housing right now is very expensive. But I'm really thankful you're doing this. I'm very, very happy. SB 85 gives you guys the right to increase your density because I think it should be this dense. I understand the step back on the east side. I appreciate that you're moving away from the neighborhood there. So I think you guys have done a great job, and I'm all for it. And I like the idea that you're going to do some community meetings, get some feedback that we may not have thought about, but full speed ahead, let's move forward with it. So if there are not any other comments or anything, we could let these folks go and continue their planning. I look forward to seeing you again. Vice Chair Mendez.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more comment, and I agree with everything that you said, but I really wanted to push on two things on getting the community involved. To really get basically the amenities that they need in this building. Not only the people that will be living there, but also the people and residents that live around there. I just an idea if if the units are not going to have laundry, then having a laundry on site is a great amenity that I'm pretty sure will be used and will be very valuable. So just really getting the feedback from the community on what they really need on that. And also just, I also want to really push on the sustainable material and, go for it and really push for using those warm wood elements. I would really like to see that integrated into the building. But that's it for me.
Awesome, totally agree. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, you're free to go. Go build a building.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All righty. How does everyone feel? Do we need a break? We got 2 more items that are going to be pretty lengthy. So shall we take a break now and come back fresh? And do you want to do your recusals now, and then we'll come back?
I was going to ask, should I do my recusals now, or when we
why don't you go ahead and then you won't have to come back. Right.
Okay. So I'm going to have to recuse myself for the next 2 items. So should I just announce both of them right now?
Christy, would that be appropriate? Yeah, she's nodding her head, yes.
Okay, so I will be recusing myself from item 9.2. Wareham Development is a client of my employer and therefore is the source of income. And I will also be recusing myself from item 9.3. The applicant, Harvest Properties, are a client of my employer, therefore a source of income. And I believe those are the last 2. Yep.
And Vice Chair Mendez, would you like for me to text you when we're done with 9.3, or will you be watching on TV?
I'll be watching on TV, but just in case, maybe just a text.
Okay, will do.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. And any other recusals for item 9.2?
I have one.
Commissioner
Okay.
Chang?
So for item 9.2, I need to recuse myself because I own real property located at APN 49147126, which is within 1,000 feet of the project site, and the property is my primary residence.
So in this case, Commissioner Chait does not need to leave the meeting, but she does need to be made an attendee so that she can participate as a member of the public. So I will change her role to attendee.
Very good. Any other recusals for item 9.2? Okay, so let's take a break. Let's come back at, say, 8:02. We'll kind of give Commissioner Dram an opportunity to come back. So we'll reconvene here at 8:02, okay?
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, we don't need him for 9 till 9.3 desperately, so hopefully between now and then. Okay, because we have 5 of us. Okay, we'll bring it back into order. And we'll move on to item 9.2, the Emery Station Overland project.
Excuse me, Chair Keller, it looks like I did not change Commissioner Chafe to attendee, which is what I had intended to do. So, let me do that. I'm not sorry.
Okay, no worry. All right, there we go. We still have the quorum, 4 of us, right?
Yes.
Although we're not voting on anything.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so can we have the staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Chair Kell and Commissioners. I'm Desai, project planner for this proposal. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And minimize. Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, right. So this is a second study session for Emery Station Overland. The Commission reviewed this project almost a year ago in last April. And just as a quick reminder, the location of this site is a block between 63rd, Hollis, 62nd, and Overland Avenue. There's existing buildings, all of which will be demolished except for the Hollis building fronting Hollis Street. As a result of separating the Hollis building on a separate parcel, there will be a parcel division which will divide this 3.9 acre parcel into 2 parcels, as shown on the slide here. So in terms of the background, like I mentioned, the Commission reviewed this proposal in April of last year. This was followed by a study session with the City Council. The reason it went to the City Council was the applicant was proposing to obtain their bonus points under the flexible benefit component. They wanted to convert the live work portion of the live work units in the Hollis building into below market units. So in order to do that, they would need council approval. So they went to the council in July to float this idea of flexible benefit component for conversion of the live work units into BMR units. At this meeting, the council requested for some more information regarding the deal points, and then the council reviewed that at the November 16th council meeting. And I'll talk about what the council said later on in the presentation. Earlier this month, the BPAC reviewed the proposal, and now it is in front of the Planning Commission. The proposal is anticipated to be reviewed by the council again next month on April 14th. So in terms of the project description, that has not changed since the Commission reviewed it last year. It is a new life science building accommodating about 300,000 square feet of research and development space. It's a 5-story building and it's 80 feet tall. In addition, there will be a new 55 feet tall parking garage accommodating 496 parking spaces. So some of the key changes since the April Commission study session is that a new mid-block path now runs through the site, connecting 62nd and 63rd Streets for bicyclists and pedestrians. Redesign of sidewalks along the streets to meet city standards. They have included additional design and landscape details and renderings. They've submitted an arborist report, and they have also submitted off-site pedestrian and bicycle improvements, which were a result of council comments, and I'll go into that in a little bit. So this is the site plan. The mid-block path that I was talking about is this. This is the one that connects 62nd Street and 63rd Street. The parking to the garage occurs off 63rd Street, and the loading also occurs off 63rd Street. The front of the building, the R&D building here, is along 62nd Street, and this courtyard opens into Horton Street. And this is the Hollis building, which has, among other uses, the live work units that I had mentioned. This is the roof plan. I'm showing that just to show that a green roof on the R&D building is being proposed, and green roof is also being proposed for the existing building, as well as solar panels. These will not be accessible to the public. These are garage sections. The building in the garage section looking north, you will note that the garage does go underground by 2 levels. Again, this has not changed since you last saw this proposal. And these are sections looking east. This is the building rendering, and I'll let the applicant get more into details in terms of design concept and design materials, but they have not changed significantly from the last time you reviewed this project. And this is the rendering of the garage. The proposal does involve removal of 18 street trees along 63rd Street, Overland, and couple on 63rd Street. As I'd mentioned, arborist report has been submitted, and which values these trees to be removed at $146,000. This would be submitted. This would be something that applicant would be submitting to the city, and will be a condition of approval in addition to tree replacement that they will be doing. They are installing 27 new street trees, as indicated on the slide. They are all along the frontages of 62nd, 63rd, and Overland. I am also highlighting, this is the courtyard which I mentioned that opens up to Horton Street. I just want to highlight the location of bicycle parking spaces. These are the short-term bicycle parking spaces. There are some in this plaza area. There are some along this mid-block path, and about 20 are inside the parking garage. As I will note later on, this will need to be, the location of it will need to be revised so that it is near the entrance of the building, or where it can be easily be seen. Earlier, these short-term bicycles parking were located here. This needed to be changed because of the fire marshal's requirement of having a clear 20 feet of this path going down about 150 feet down the mid path. This is the reason why you do not see any kind of stormwater treatment or any kind of furniture on the upper half of this path. These are the streetscapes of 62nd Street. They show a 4-foot landscape strip with a 8-foot sidewalk. Similarly, 63rd Street streetscape also includes a 4-foot landscape strip with a 8-foot clear sidewalk space. And on Overland, it's a little different. It's a 7.5-foot pedestrian walkway with stormwater planting between the walkway and the building face, which varies between 0 and 15 feet. In terms of the land use designation, this is in the office technology zone and also has the major transit hub overlay. Zoning districts are the same as well. The use classification is research and development, which is allowed by right in the OT zoning district. FAR, it's in the base FAR is 2.0 with the bonus going up to 4.0. They are proposing 2.6 FAR, so the project will require 30 bonus points for FAR. Just as a note, the eastern portion of the site lies in a low FAR category, but that's where the parking garage is sited, and the parking garage is not included in the FAR calculations. In terms of height, the site is again in 2 height categories. The eastern portion, the base height is 30 feet, and the bonus height is 55 feet, and the remainder on the western portion is the base height is 50 with the bonus height going up to 100 feet. The parking garage stands at 55 feet, and because it's in a lower height category, it will require or will trigger 100 bonus points, whereas the R&D building, which stands at 80 feet, is in the higher height category and will need only 60 bonus points. So the project will require the full 100 points for height, and that would be the height of the parking garage. So in terms of bonus points, as we know, 50 must be earned by provision of affordable housing, and 50 must be earned by provision of community benefits. For non-residential projects, the way the affordable housing component is calculated is that it needs to pay 100% additional affordable housing impact fee at the time of building permit issuance. So the current fee for the housing impact fee is a little under $5. And to obtain 50 bonus points, the applicant will need to pay about a little under $10 per square feet, which adds up to $2.9 million. But the actual fee will be whatever the affordable housing development impact fee is at the time of building permit issuance. In terms of community benefits, as you know, there are various categories which include additional public open space, zero net energy, public improvements, utility undergrounding, or contribution to city's small business fund, and of course, the undefined flexible community benefit. The proposal is for getting 20 bonus points by providing additional public open space, and then getting the remainder 30 bonus points by converting 10 of the existing 41 live work units in the Hollis Street building to below market BMR units. So this is the additional open space. So the additional open space is indicated by the dark green color. And that is what they are looking for is the mid-block path. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the dark green path here, as well as a portion of the plaza area that is being proposed for additional open space for 20 points. The flexible community benefit, as I mentioned at the November 16th study council, the study session with the council was presented with the negotiated terms for providing 10 BMR live work units at the Hollis building into a combination of very low and low income housing. So 3 will be for very low income households, which are households which make 50% of the area median income, and 7 will be for low income households, and those are households which make between 51 to 80% of the area median income. So these are calculated to have a value of approximately $4.92 million, or which is 3% of the construction valuation, which is what is needed for this flexible community benefit. The council at the November 16th study session indicated that they were satisfied that the project could obtain 30 bonus points in this manner. In terms of parking, the research and lab businesses need space for both lab and office on a half and half basis, and the city has used this criteria for other projects as well. And this results, as outlined in the staff report, an estimated parking demand of 580 spaces. As I mentioned earlier, the site lies in the transit hub overlay zone, which reduces all parking calculations by 50%. And we know that we no longer have a minimum parking requirement, so the required minimum parking is 0, and the maximum parking permitted is 411 spaces. So that is the estimated demand plus 10% of that. The proposed spaces that they're providing is 496 spaces, of which 68 spaces will be for the existing users in the Hollis building. The project needs a use permit to allow more parking than the 10% above the estimated demand. And the findings that need to be made for the use permit to allow more parking is that the applicant has demonstrated that the parking is required for the anticipated demand for the proposed use, and that the provision of parking over the maximum will not result in an overdependence on autos and will not adversely affect transit, bicycle, or pedestrian access to the site or adjacent uses. The applicant has submitted a parking analysis which is currently being peer reviewed by Fair and Peers. Fair and Peers is also doing a transportation assessment for the project as a whole. And the findings of these reports will be presented the next time this proposal comes to the commission. In terms of bicycle parking, one long-term and one short-term is required for every 10 auto parking spaces, indicated as the estimated parking demand, and the transit hub overlay reduction does not apply to bicycle parking, since the intent of the overlay zone is to encourage alternative transportation modes such as bicycles. Since the estimated demand is 580 spaces, so 58 long-term and 58 short-term bicycle spaces will be provided. They are providing the total number of 58 parking spaces for both short-term and long-term. As I mentioned earlier, 20 of the 58 short-term bicycle spaces are right now being shown inside the parking garage, which do not meet the locational criteria, as short-term parking needs to be provided within a convenient distance of, and more importantly, clearly visible from the main entrance of the building. So the applicant will need to revise that and provide the 20 short-term bike parking spaces elsewhere. In terms of loading, the requirement for this project is 2 medium loading spaces and 1 large loading space, and they are proposing 3 large loading spaces inside the building, and as designed, the project does meet the loading requirements. Open space. So for non-residential projects, the requirement for open spaces are 5% of the gross floor area as common open space, of which 1% would be proposed or publicly accessible open spaces on private property. So this calculates to 15,000 square feet of open space, of which 3,000 needs to be in form of POPO. So these open spaces are shown in green, light green colors. So you have this plaza area, which will have these POPOs that are indicated. In addition, there is this north lobby and the artwork, which will also being calculated for open space. And then you have the small West Overland space that is being calculated as the open space requirement. In terms of design guidelines, the project does meet the sidewalk widths. It also meets the floor to ceiling height for projects such as these. And there are various design elements in the guidelines that are being met by the kind of design that they are proposing. So the applicant responds to the City Council comments. At the November 16th study session, the Council indicated that in order to make the findings required for parking over the maximum, the applicant would need to provide enhancements to pedestrian and bicycle circulation, specifically by providing bicycle lanes around the site and closing Overland Avenue between 63rd and 64th Streets to motor vehicle traffic while accommodating emergency vehicles via bollards or similar measures. Staff met with the applicant on December of last year and January of this year to discuss these concepts. The applicant submitted a plan to install Portland cement curbs to replace the pavement markers and plastic bollards along both sides of Horton Street between Powell and 62nd, both sides of Overland Avenue between 62nd and 63rd Streets, and the north side of 62nd Street between Horton and Hollis. And this is shown in this diagram, which was also attached to the staff report. In addition, they are also showing 3 locations in red, and these are benches for viewing and sitting. The applicant submitted revised public improvements yesterday to staff We have not had a chance to review it, but I'm expecting that the applicant will be showing that to the commission in their presentation. The project was reviewed by BPAC on March 7th. The committee expressed concern regarding the need for bicyclists to dismount when they reach the southern end of the path, as it does not align with Horton Street. The committee liked the idea of the art walk, but commented that it was narrow and that it should be well lit. The committee also expressed concern that the design of the garage precluded future conversion to different land uses should the need for parking decline over the lifespan of the garage building. So in terms of the issues and the comments that, and the input that we need from the commission, that is regarding bonus points. As I mentioned, the applicant proposes to obtain 20 bonus points by providing additional open space in form of the plaza area, the mid-block path, and wishes to obtain the remaining 30 bonus points by converting the 10 live work units in the existing Hollis Street as affordable units. The question for the commission is, does the commission consider designating a portion of the 62nd Street Plaza area and the mid-block path as open public space as an appropriate way for the project to obtain bonus points? And does the commission have any other preferences as to how bonus points should be obtained? Public improvements, does the commission believe that the applicant has responded adequately to the council's suggestions for improving bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure? And if the commission have any other comments on the project design overall. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Maru. We'll bring it up to the commission for questions for staff. But Charlie, were you wanting to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair Keller. I just wanted to note for the record that Commissioner Dram has joined us as of 8:15 p.m.
Yay, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Is there anything, Commissioner Dram, you missed that you would like us to go over, or do you think you adequately heard enough?
I think I'm good, thank you.
Alrighty, very good. So are there any questions of commission to staff? Commissioner Gitzoni?
Yes, could you tell me a little bit more about what the Seattle curbs are? I'm assuming that's a curb between a bike area and a car area.
I think you mean Portland cement?
Portland cement, yeah, there's something about a Portland curb being put in, and that's what that long yellow line is the bike improvement?
That's a kind of cement. Portland cement is just cement. It's just a name for a kind of cement.
Oh, okay. Because I was Googling it and I did find the kind of cement, but I thought it might be something different. So I'm not clear as to how that's a bicycle improvement when there's curbs there already, right? What is that?
So it's going to replace the bike markers, and then you have these little curb ramps so that, so there'll be a separation instead of right now it's just a marking that you have on the street. So
this will be a raised curb that will be between the bike lane and the car lane.
Okay, that's what I was referring to initially. Okay, so there'll be kind of like a car area, a curb, and then a bike lane.
Right.
Okay, two questions related to that. One, I know where there's bollards further down Hollis or Horton, that's often like in the fall where a lot of wet leaves collect and it doesn't seem to get cleaned, and that's a very slippery area for biking. And how would cleaning happen with this curb?
That is something I will need to get back to you on that, Commissioner Gizzoni.
Okay, because I just, speaking for myself, when I hit those areas, I go straight into the car, I think, because if you have to hit the brakes or swerve or anything, you're gonna be on the ground. And then the other thing is Horton still a bike boulevard?
Yes.
Okay, because my understanding is that with the bike boulevard, it's supposed to be discouraging all non-bicycle traffic. Is that correct?
Well, I can respond to that. The general plan has a designation for bike boulevard, indicates that it can be either class 3, where the bikes use the whole width of the street, or class 2, meaning you can have bike lanes. It also says that through traffic is discouraged, but there may be higher volumes of traffic in concentrated areas, you know, around activity centers. So, for example, around the Amtrak station and the lab buildings there, higher amount of local traffic would be permissible on a bicycle boulevard.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Simons.
Thanks, Chair Keller. Mario, thanks so much for the great presentation as always. I have a couple of questions. First, on page 10 of 14 of the staff report, you talk about these questions related to the 490 space parking garage. The second of which says the provision of additional parking will not result in an overdependence on automobiles, ... Will this question be discussed at a future meeting? Is that not relevant for this conversation? I'm just trying to understand how that question fits in.
I think it will be discussed at the next meeting because at the moment we do not have a peer review study from Fair and Peers for you to have enough information to make these findings. So when this comes back to the commission, you will have the study from Fair and Peers, including the peer review of the applicant's parking survey, which will allow you to make or not make these findings.
Great, thank you. And then my other question is, so closing this block of Overland Avenue, can you talk about the logistics of how this would be done? Is the idea that the developer is going to pay for this closure? Do they not want it closed? Can you just kind of give a bigger picture, help me understand how this would happen, how it fits into this project?
I was not present at the November 14th council meeting, so I'm going to look to Charlie to kind of explain what the council had in mind when they suggested that. Also, just to answer the second part of your question is that this would be paid at the applicant's expense.
And I will defer to the applicant, who I believe, as Miru said, is going to be presenting an updated plan tonight for how this would work. But what the council was not real detailed in their direction. They simply said that they would like to see Overland Avenue closed between 63rd and 64th Streets to motor vehicle traffic, which would still allow for vehicular circulation around the block of this building, which would be on Overland between 62nd and 63rd. Vehicles could still circulate there, but they would have to turn off Overland onto 63rd, and then north of 64th, they could come onto Overland from 64th. They just wouldn't be able to travel on that one block. And I will note that Baron Pierce, in their analysis of the project, will be looking at this and analyzing this proposed circulation pattern.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, I just have one, Baru. On page 4 of 14 of the staff report, they talk about the subdivision of the parcel. And then at the end of that, you talk about, or the report talks about, that the existing Hollis Street building where live work units are going to be converted to BMR located is considered off-site. What does that actually mean, off-site? Does that mean that this new parcel is not to be considered as part of this project, or is it in part and parcel of the project?
I can respond to that. For analysis purposes, we considered only the portion of the block that the new buildings will be on to be the project site. So if you saw in that diagram that Miru showed, where this block was divided into 2 parcels, and one was outlined in red, which was the existing Hollis Street building, that we are considering that off-site, because the project site is the new parcel, or the parcel of the west part of the block. That's how we calculated the FAR, using the area of that, and also for the bonus points, using the area of that parcel. So in order to be consistent in our analysis, we are using only that new parcel as the so-called project site. And anything else, including the adjacent parcel next door that they will also own, is off-site.
Okay, so how does that relate when they're using part of that building as a benefit to this project? So such as the green roof and the solar, is the solar that's going on the existing Hollis building going to feed the new building? Or is it, because we're considering the green roofs, the solar panel, and also part of the public open space is on Hollis and I believe it is 64th?
Actually, no, that's not correct. They've shown that in their drawings, but as we explained in the staff report, we are not including that in our analysis.
It's on page 23.
It's not needed in order to gain the 20 bonus points. They, yeah, if you go to that open space diagram.
Oh.
There, that, yes. So the dark green, there's actually 3 dark green areas here. Mm-hmm. There's the mid-block path, there's the portion adjacent to the courtyard, and then there's the portion at the corner of 64th and Hollis.
Correct.
In our analysis, we only included the first 2.
Okay.
Not because in order to earn 20 bonus points, you must provide at least 5% of the site area as public open space. Well, those 2 areas, the courtyard area and the mid-block path, add up to 7% of the new parcel.
Okay.
So you don't need the space at 64th and Hollis. You don't need to include that in order to gain 20 bonus points, and it just muddies the waters because it's not on the same site. Right, yeah. Right. So that space, that shouldn't even be on this drawing. Yeah. You should just pretend it's not there.
And then what about the solar on the roof and the garden on the roof of that building?
They're not seeking any bonus points for any of that. I think that was just to add flavor to the presentation.
Okay. So nothing to be considered in this project.
Right.
That was my only question. Thank you. Okay, if there are not any other questions, we will give the applicant time to give us their presentation.
I am promoting them as we speak. I think I got everybody. Just double check.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Claudia Capio, and I am assisting Wareham in this effort. We appreciate this opportunity to review and consider the project and the changes that have been made during the past year. We believe that the refinements have produced a strong addition to the Emeryville campus, Emery Station campus, and to the biotech economy in Emeryville, while providing significant public and community benefits. And we look forward to your comments. Next slide, please. Tonight, I will be presenting, along with Rich Robbins and Jeff Sears of Wareham Development, and Matt Malone from Perkins and Will. Dwight Long, who's also present tonight, will be available if there are architectural and design questions. This is just a brief chronology of where we've been during the past year, as Maru indicated, with public meetings and the council review, as well as BPAC, and obviously your study session in April of 21. For new commissioners, this list gives you a sense of where we've been and what we've done over the past year. Next slide, please. Throughout the evolution of this project, we have had mutual objectives of retaining a legacy building on the site and a long-standing live-work community, contributing to Emeryville's tax base, extending the Emery Station campus with a new lab and office building, and obviously providing community benefits in infrastructure improvements and affordable housing. Next slide, please. We also believe we have strengthened linkages to historic Emeryville and future Emeryville, to the existing live-work community, and to the existing Emery Station Life Science Center campus. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is just a brief overview. I know Maru has done a really complete job in her staff report, so I'm just going to go through highlights here. This slide provides context of the existing campus with the concurrent open space and public improvements that have occurred, And it gives you a really good idea of where the northern parcel now will act as a continuation of the campus along the Hollis Street spine. It's also a good representation of a part of a conscious 40-year biotech vision that Wareham has had in developing the campus along with the Amtrak station. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the site. The area in pink will be demolished, and the area in blue is the existing Hollis Street building. A key principle for Wareham was to think holistically about the superblock through the connection between new and old Emeryville. And toward that end, I'm going to introduce Rich Robbins, who will talk a little bit about the background of this live-work building.
The history of this building emanates out of 1978, and it was the first legal live-work space in Emeryville called incidental residential. Given what was going on in our master planning, it was essential for us to look at the housing crisis. We have 40 units, and the idea behind saving not only the historic Hollis building was to upgrade the 40 units, and with the council's vision, we agreed to do 10 designated affordable housing units on a 50-year basis. That combines with expanding the campus for the life sciences and also to take into account an upgrade as well as expansion of the bike boulevard. Those are the main ingredients in what we saw as the vision for this site.
Thank you. Next slide, please. This is just a brief overview of the project. I won't go into it because Maru, again, did a great job in describing the project, but it's really important that you know that Wareham has been respectful of the scale and context in the area. The site could accommodate up to 100 feet of height and a higher FAR, but maxing out the building envelope was not as important as a good fit for the campus and the surrounding area. Next slide, please. This shows you the existing streetscape along 62nd Street as it looks now. And this is a view of the new building from the Horton Street intersection. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view showing a little bit of a bird's eye view between showing the solar panels and the green roof elements, just to give you a sense of perspective, and the garage tucked in with a green wall facing the Hollis Street building. Next slide, please. During the past year, the Council, Planning Commission, and city staff have all offered comments and suggestions, and this is just a summary of what we heard and then how we responded. The mid-block passage through the 63rd, the completed parking demand study, the provision of affordable units for flexible community benefits, and other sustainability measures. Next slide, please. This is just an illustration of the mid-block passage and how it's been incorporated. Next slide, please. Green roofs and the solar panels, again, just highlighting them. Next slide. This is some balcony elements that have been further deepened and emphasized, thereby creating more interest and articulation in the building. We note that these balcony features are an important part of this building, as well as the other Emory Station campus buildings, as they create an indoor-outdoor connection, the ability to enjoy outdoor breaks and respite from the office and lab environment, and also it's important for design continuity among all the Emeryville campus buildings. Next slide, please. I'll go into parking, which has been a major challenge for this project. As Maru described, Wareham is desiring 496 spaces, or 85 more than the maximum permitted by the city of 411. We completed a parking demand study to demonstrate that this parking is reasonable. And from the council's comments, we were able to incorporate major off-site and pedestrian public improvements, strengthening the city's network and complementing the campus-wide bicycle facilities such as bike storage, bike pods, bike repair stations, and racks for cargo bikes. In addition, as noted on a previous project, Wareham will follow through on the suggestion made by BPAC to include chargers for electric bicycles. Next slide, please. Wareham's biggest challenge here is that the area in red is the transit overlay, and you can see the site is up at the north corner. Projects within this zone, as Maru explained, have their parking reduced by 50% with the objective of encouraging and incentivizing transit use. The problem here is that in the case of the Amtrak station, they do not have commuter rail service frequencies and direct BART and bus connections necessary to reduce the parking demand. So if the project were located just one block north, outside of the overlay zone across 63rd, 580 spaces would be the maximum permitted, or 84 more than what Wareham is proposing. Next slide, please. This next slide offers context and comparison of similar biotech development parking ratios that have recently been improved in Emeryville and the surrounding Bay Area. And I'm going to have Jeff Sears speak to this slide as well as the next one to give you background.
Thank you, Claudia. I'm Jeff Sears with Wareham Development. I just wanted to give you a little context. We know that Emeryville has been a visionary city in terms of trying to move away from single occupant vehicles to transit. And the fact of the matter is Wareham has bought into that with both feet, money and time for the last almost 30 years. We built the Amtrak station together with the city of Emeryville to create any transit in the city, and it's been very successful. We were one of the founding members with the city of the Emeryville round, and I personally have been on its board for over 20 years and president of the Emeryville round board for more than half that period. Emeryville, back in when we started developing, was a factory town that most people had left, and it didn't have almost any parking. And so there were very high minimum parking amounts required of every development to try to catch up and create some parking so that there could be an active commercial population. Once that occurred, Emeryville realized maybe we should try, we've caught up, maybe we should try to throttle back the parking. And they created this transit hub circle, which we took advantage of to build less than the required minimum of 3 per 1,000, such that over time, we've reduced the overall campus's ratio to 2.2 per 1,000. That's over a quarter, 25% reduction of what we started. With this proposal, at the request we're making of 1.5 per 1,000, we have to take those 20 years of successes and improve them another 35%. So intrinsic with our request for 1.5 per 1,000, we're buying in again with both feet that we can, with the city's vision, convince people to continue to move to transit, to continue to move to bike and other means of getting to work. So we think the city's been incredibly successful. That's allowed people like us to consider building as little parking as we're proposing. I'd love it if the world didn't require any. We're not there yet. And so what we need to do is continue to move incrementally with you and do things like we've already done on the campus. We have a bike share pod already on the campus. We have installed a number of publicly accessible bike repair stations next to the bike lanes. And as you'll see in just a minute, when we turn it back over, we're proposing a pretty material improvement to the bicycle and pedestrian part of North Hollis. Thank you.
Next slide, please. This is just a summary of what Jeff has just been through. The fact that that you have reduced parking requirements, that you have the second highest transit use in the region, right behind San Francisco, and that public improvements have been a big part of why people are able to commute in an alternative mode. A big part of that has been the Emeryville round. Next slide, please. This next slide is just highlights of the parking demand study. We projected demand for parking between 205 and 235 more spaces than currently proposed. We used 3 separate methodologies to do this, just to make sure that we were in the ballpark. We also were able to do a survey of current campus employees with over 500 people responding, and we found that nearly a third already use alternative transit methods to get to work. And finally, when asked about why people still drove to work, a big part of their reasoning was childcare obligations and lack of reasonable transit alternatives. Next slide, please. So, picking up on the theme that public improvements for pedestrian and bicycles are a really important part of the puzzle of getting people to commute other than single occupant vehicles, we've enhanced the proposal that we submitted to the city a couple of months ago. We've recently done more work on it, and it includes a couple of additional pieces. First, the protected permanent and safer bicycle travel routes from Powell to 62nd, and then a dual route on the north side of 62nd, two-way route from Hollis over to the intersection of Overland and then up Overland to 63rd. At the block between between 63rd and 64th, the street will be closed, and we have enhanced that, and we will get to that in a minute with another graphic. But there will also be emergency access provided, and then that will also require cars to be restricted, as shown in the white area, southbound from 63rd to 62nd along Overland. For this next slide, please, I'd like to introduce Matt Malone from Perkins & Will, who will explain the Overland concept in more detail.
Hey everyone, thank you, Claudia. My name is Matt Malone, as Claudia said. I'm a landscape architect with Perkins & Will. And here I wanted to share with you today our concept design for the Overland Avenue Linear Park. As you know, we're proposing to close Overland Avenue to through traffic between 63rd and 64th Street, just north of our project site. And the design is inspired by the tactical urbanism and slow street movements that have swept the nation over the past decade or so. And more recently, as we've seen with the pandemic, where streets and spaces that were primarily used for vehicular traffic are transformed into community nodes and safe places for people to gather and recreate. The space will be designed to allow for continued use for emergency vehicle traffic, which requires a more generous 20-foot throughway than that we are proposing as an art-filled bike and pedestrian path, taking cues from events such as the San Rafael annual Chalk Art Festival and street murals nationwide that celebrate local communities and artists, or even social movements such as Black Lives Matter. This is a place where the community can engage and inform the design and artistic expression of the space and really make it their own. In addition to the community art focus, we also want to create a comfortable place for people to hang out. We're proposing a number of large shade trees on both sides of the street and an enhanced planting buffer to help soften the space. You'll also notice this activity zone along the east side of the street, where we imagine as a playful collection of parklet-inspired seating areas with integrated planters, benches, bike parking, and trellises. A fun design project for us as we move forward through the design process.
Thank you, Matt. Next slide, please. We wanted to briefly go through the affordable housing proposal. 7 low-income units, 3 very low-income units, and 30 upgraded and retained live-work units. A 55-year regulatory agreement to make sure the rents are restricted over a long-term period, and the value approximately $4.9 million equivalent in present value. We really see this as a unique opportunity to offer large, flexible live-work units to artists, entrepreneurs, and makers that is part of an existing creative community. You just don't find large, flexible space units like this anymore, and you can't duplicate them. So we believe that these are very important to the continuation of this creative community. Wareham will also be preserving and enhancing residential occupancy in a district that is not zoned for housing, which is ironic here, but it's a great thing. The location is also really important in terms of being along a main corridor and in the center of the city. The next slides are a description of landscape and open space, and again, I'll turn it back to Matt for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for reference, here's where we're at when we first presented to the commission. You can go to the next slide. This next plan highlights the changes made in response to feedback, most of which we've already reviewed. The mid-block crossing, enhanced sustainability measures such as the solar arrays and green roofs, as well as the enhanced streetscape design along Overland Avenue. Next slide. Turning those distracting red boxes off, we can see here more clearly the very robust landscape approach for the project. The site is really anchored by our central courtyard space, which is designed as an inviting social hub for the community with outdoor lounge and hangout spaces, collaboration zones, public art, and a beautiful and resilient landscape design. Next is the mid-block crossing and art walk, which allows pedestrians and cyclists to navigate from 62nd to 63rd Street. The space is really designed as a path of discovery and an intimately scaled pedestrian connection, similar to those that are found throughout the Emeryville neighborhood fabric. This unique and exciting space is designed as an outdoor art gallery with numerous opportunities for local artists in the form of murals and sculpture, as well as design elements such as custom furnishings and hardscape materials that really celebrate the site's industrial past and numerous makers, fabricators, and artists that call Emeryville home. I did want to take a second to note that we read and have heard very clearly that the 20 bike parking spaces identified in the garage are not in the right place. And I just wanted to mention that we can certainly find room for those elsewhere. And last but not least, our streetscapes. We've proposed streetscape improvements on 62nd and Overland, as well as brand new curb and streetscape on 63rd, where currently no sidewalk exists. All of these are designed to meet or exceed minimum sidewalk standards for throughways and landscape zones, and wanted to highlight that we're adding a total of 27 new street trees to replace those that we've removed. Next slide, please. In this visualization, you can see the central courtyard with its dynamic surrounds which serve to anchor the terminus of the Horton Street spine. We really see this space as the site's central gathering space, providing a destination for the community and building tenants with numerous opportunities to sit, rest, socialize, or work outside in this beautiful and shaded landscape courtyard setting. Note the colorful lounge seating, which we hope invites people into the space. And I just wanted to note that although only portions of the area are required to be publicly accessible, we really intend for the entire courtyard and all of our ground level landscapes to be accessible and inviting to the public. Next slide, please. Here you can see the mid-block crossing. This image was taken from the 62nd Street entrance with 63rd Street. You can see at the very end there. We designed this to be a very inviting space with murals and art here at the entry and beyond to invite people in, as well as ground level landscape, trees, seating, bike parking, and overhead lighting. Next slide, please. Here you can see a video that we prepared that allows you to walk through and really sort of experience the place. Here you can see our bike parking area over to the right, the benches and landscaping that we're providing at the building foundation to really kind of soften the space and the moments of art that we found along the way. This sort of open area at the end was required to provide for fire access, but we think it could still be a really nice space. Next. And here is the art walk. We're standing on the east side looking west towards the new building. The existing building to remain is here on the left side, and our garage is over here on the right. I just wanted to highlight a few of the features here. Note the rail spur that we've transformed into the pedestrian connection through here. Really, and the sort of custom furnishings over here with the industrial materials, really wanting to celebrate that industrial past and speak to it through our design. As well as notice the punctuated facade of the garage here, where we envision an outdoor gallery wall with potentially some rotating art exhibits, creating sort of continued interest throughout the year.
So I'll come back with some closing thoughts. I think that we have made this project better through your comments and concerns. We have substantial community benefits, and it will add to the biotech economy in Emeryville, which is a growing sector. So we welcome the Planning Commission's comments and look forward to moving the project to final review and approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to bring it back to the commission to see who has questions for the applicant.
Chair Keller, I can start off with a question. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the street block that you will be closing off? Will you be maintaining that in the future? Will you be programming that? What will that look like?
It will be required that we build it, and I believe it has not been decided about who's maintaining it. I'm not quite sure what the practices are in Emeryville.
Well, it's going to be a combination. I think, like, we have a lot of private public spaces that we've worked with the city and approvals. In this case, some of the work that has to be monitored would be emergency preparedness, that there have to be some bollards for fire and emergency response to go through that street only during emergencies. The other aspect of it are the bike paths and how it's going to be deemed, whether it's park and rec or it's going to be deemed private space. It's still a city property that we're being asked to improve.
Is that your only question, Commissioner Simmons?
I think it is at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Okay, I have a couple. So you're going to renovate all of the current residential units. So how does that work around the existing tenants when you do those renovations?
I'll answer that. We're obviously not going to ask anyone to leave their units. That's not at all. The goal here is to preserve housing on a site that actually doesn't allow it, not to disturb it. So we have the opportunity to renovate unit. You know, we have a few vacant. We've had more vacant lately because of COVID. So we have the opportunity to deliver vacant units to the affordable housing commitment right away. I heard Commissioner Simons say earlier that's the goal, and that would be possible here. So we don't need people to move out for that to accomplish. And then we're going to figure out how to renovate people's units the right way. They may decide they'd like it done while they were there, or we need to wait until they move and there's a turnover.
Okay. And you might want to bring up your slides again, showing your parking ratio. And I'm going to ask this as a question, even though it's not quite a question, but I don't want to have to reopen this for public comment once we do, because I think we're going to need to have a dialogue here. I just want to question your methodology. First of all, you mentioned, I mean, you're using this as you're showing us the way I'm looking at this is what's been allowed. This is what, you know, you're using as a basis on using your formulation, but the Longfellow proposal didn't happen. It never even got to the point where we decided what was going to be done, what was not. So I think injecting that in as a part of your matrix and part of what has been apparently approved, even though it's this proposal, I think is misleading. And then I also want to mention the biomed, the first building, that was part of a PUD that was approved back in the 1990s. So I just want to, when you bring items like this to us, make sure they're valid and resonant to what you're talking about, because I think showing us this numbers that you're saying that biomed got 2 per 1,000 square feet and that Longfellow's got 2 per 1,000 square feet is misleading. They didn't get those. They got, the biomed got theirs because it was part of a PUD, and Longfellow didn't get anything. They're not even doing that project. So I want you to address that as part of a question so we don't have to go back and forth as a public comment later on.
Well, I'm going to address that in terms of the biome. I appreciate your comment about Longfellow. We have this slide from a moment before they withdrew their proposal, but I appreciate that comment. Biomed, their PUD, they asked for some radical changes. They had some parking. You all asked them to make some concessions on parking. These are the numbers they ended up with. They asked for the existing building in the campus to be parked at 2 per 1,000 and the balance at 1.5. We actually looked very hard at that as a meaningful precedent for our project, and that's why we haven't asked for more than 1.5, to be honest, Chair Keller, because you said very loudly, we believe in that process that that was a logical number and not more.
Okay, that's fair. That's all the questions I have at this time. So I'd like to open the meeting. If there are no more questions, let me make sure commissioners have no more questions.
Chair Keller?
Sure, go ahead.
If I may, I just want to make one small point of clarification having to do with whether or not housing is permitted at this location. This is, in fact, in the office technology zone, the OT zone, and it's true that multi-unit housing is not permitted in that zoning district. However, live work, which is different than a straight residential use, is permitted, is a conditionally permitted use in this zoning district. So the current live work units are permitted in this zoning district, whereas an apartment or condo building would not be. So just to clarify that.
I appreciate that. And it's also, for me, we also know legal non-conforming. There are things that happened before the zoning and everything changed. So when they mention that, I just keep thinking, well, it's legal non-conforming. It's legal non-conforming. It's really a moot point to bring up one way or the other, but that's just the way I handle the information. Okay, so let's open it up for public comment. We'll give all the speakers 3 minutes and ask you if there's any speaker cards or raised hands.
All right, let me just recheck my email one last time. I do not see any new online speaker cards, and I do not see any raised hands from among the attendees.
All right, very good. So let's bring it back to the commission for comments, and we'll start with Commissioner Driver.
So you're closing the public comment?
I'm sorry, yes, we're closing the public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for presentation. First of all, for general plan point of view, I think we need more housing. If we can add like any kind of like more affordable housing as existing, next to the existing, that would be perfect. And also for the corridor that you made next to two buildings, I think the human scale is not being seen. And I don't think somebody feels good when walking there or going through that corridor. So if we can like wider it, it would be better. These are two of my comments for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Gizzoni. You're on mute. There you are.
So I guess to look at the staff questions, we had, this where we're addressing the staff questions at this point, Chair Keller?
Or just comments on the project itself. It's a study session, so they're looking for further information as well.
I don't really have a lot of comments at this moment. I do like that the straight through passageway was added. I think that's a necessary improvement. I have concerns about the parking, but I think we'll address that when the parking study is out. So that's pretty much it for right now.
Very good, thank you. And Commissioner Simons?
Thank you, Chair Keller. Like other commissioners, I'm really, really happy to see the connection, the straight connection to the block was introduced. I think it's really important that when the Planning Commission asks for things and then developers move to implement those changes, we should really recognize and think they're making those things happen. Like other commissioners, I'm concerned about parking. I'm reflecting on the commenter, the public comment at the very start of the meeting, where the person said, you know, the way San Francisco put in a gazillion jobs and no homes was one project at a time. And I want to figure out how we can avoid that trap, but that is a very difficult trap to avoid, and I'm excited to discuss the parking challenges that this project faces when the moment comes to do that. And thanks so much for the presentation.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Zupko.
I appreciate all of the work that's kind of been going on over the last few months to get it to this place. I don't have anything else to add, but I'm really glad that we're doing so much to develop this project. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. I think I am the only one left that hasn't been recused on this. First of all, I want to express that overall, I like the project. There's really, I think it's an improvement. It is in a non-residential area. Of course, we'd like to see more residential, but that's a topic for another day's discussion. I think the parking is going to be an issue. I just read a report from Spur that was published in the San Francisco Examiner that the whole Bay Area is overparked. A study that I had done here through Transform on our building shows that it's 25% overparked. I look at your Heritage Garage every day. I can see 3 levels of that garage, not all parts of that level, but they are empty every day. I've gone over and taken photographs of that garage as well as the transit center garage. There are spaces all the time. So I don't think you have a parking deficit, you have a parking dearth. And I think with the Heritage Garage being across the street from this project, you have enough parking if you stay within the number that we are requiring. So I'll be interested to see what Karen Pierce reports, because I like what Jeff said about parking, that we're not there yet. But I think by us asking you to reduce 85 parking spaces in a garage this big is the incremental steps you're talking about. And I will state again that developers and financiers are not going to make the hard decision. We all know that single occupant vehicles are the worst polluters and the biggest cause of greenhouse gases. So I'm going to continue to hold people's feet to the fire unless they show me a really good reason why they need to go over the amount that we allow. You're going to really have to show me why that is. So whether it's 85 spaces or 10 spaces, if it's over what we allow, you got to really give me a convincing argument. So parking is going to be an issue that I think that we really need to address and see some new arguments other than the tenants want it and the financiers need to see that. Further on the garage, I like the north elevation with the planters, and I think that's a real good look. Green walls on the south elevation, green walls do not work in the Bay Area. I have not seen any. I've looked. The Ellington in Oakland is a really good example of a green wall that is dead and ugly. So I'm really going to stress the fact, even your building, the Heritage Garage, that green wall there is not living up to its expectations, certainly not living up to the architectural renderings. So green walls in the East Bay do not work. So I really want to see something else other than a green wall on a parking structure in particular. I'm really kind of disappointed in our city council that they've kind of given you a directive which kind of usurps our ability to give you suggestions. I wish our city council had done a joint meeting with the planning commission and the city council before they made recommendations to you, and I'll give you 2 reasons for that. I think closing off Overland is a mistake. We're going to turn the city into Berkeley, when people that want to go north and south are forced to drive east, and they just drive all over the town because they can't get through. I love what you guys did, Matt. I think the idea of what you did on that street is really great, really commendable. Who's going to use it? There's no housing over there other than what you guys have. It's next to a railroad track. I mean, and the trains idle right there all night long, all day long, with their diesel generators running. That is not going to be a pleasant place to do this. And I don't agree with the councils wanting to close that street off. I think it's going to cause traffic to just get lost in the city, which they already have a problem. I commend the idea of the separated bike lanes and the curbs. If you look at Melvia Street in Berkeley, I'm really, really glad that Commissioner Gitsuna brought this up. If you look at Melvia Street, what the city just did, it becomes a collection of leaves and debris. And it's really dangerous for bikes, and there's no way to get a street sweeper in that. So I don't think adding that curb is going to be a great thing, because I don't know how we're going to clean the streets in there. Because already, even with the bollards, those lanes are not clean. And as a biker, you're going to end up on your back, with wet leaves or gravel that collects in there. And additionally, that's going to cause vehicles to double park, because we know the main issue that we have with Wareham and Horton is the double parking for deliveries. And I saw somebody parked the other day right in the middle of the lane, and a police officer drove by, looked right at the guy got out of his thing, did his delivery, and the police officer did nothing, and the car blocked the whole travel lane. So this is what's going to happen, is people aren't going to be able to park at the curb like they want to do, and they're going to park in the street. So I think with all the things that we have problem, I would have loved to have had this conversation with City Council before they gave you guys the edict, but I think they've kind of usurped our right and our job to do this and told you what they wanted to see, because they're the ones that are going to finally see this thing. So I hope they take this into consideration when they consider that, or if you guys could come back and maybe come up with a better idea. But I don't think either of these items are something I could support. I definitely think on the throughway that there needs to be curb cuts that built into that, and no parking, so that bicycles and pedestrians can enter that and exit that at both sides without any impediment. I don't know what your plans were. I couldn't see that, but I definitely think that that needs to be curb cuts and no parking in that area so that cars can get through. So in a sense, I think that's most of the things that I had that were important at this point. I really appreciate what you guys have done. I really like to see this developed. I think overall it could be a great project, and I hope we get to some consensus and we get this going. Are there any other comments anyone would like to add? Clarifying remarks from the project. Go ahead, Charlie.
I was just going to ask Miru if she feels that we've had adequate response from the commission to the discussion questions.
If she wants to bring up the discussion questions, we can. Because I think I addressed number 2 that I don't agree with the city council on there.
I can bring it up if the commission wants.
Sure, why don't you?
You see it?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So we'll just kind of start off so we can, I don't believe the bonus points for the mid-block. I know that was suggested by council. I don't support that. And I think until we know that the council is not going to direct them, I don't want to spend time giving them ideas of bonus points, because it seems like the council's pretty fixed on this.
Well, Chair Keller, just to clarify, you understand this is not related to the Overland linear park.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is the mid-block passageway.
Oh, yeah, well, of course. Yeah, I think that should be part of the open space. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that myself. Public improvements, yeah, that's the item I don't agree with. And overall, yeah, it's just, I think I clarified that on myself. So does any other commissioner want to add comment? Do they think they could find these 3 findings? Commissioner Simons?
Sure, I'll go for a minute. I think I feel actually really, really good about the mid-block path. It's something we've asked for. It's something that the project applicant has delivered on. And I think it's going to be really, really nice. I walk through the neighborhood a lot already, and would love to keep heading south, or heading further north from where I live, not on the street. I don't particularly think for number 2, the applicant has responded adequately. I think the best thing for improving bicycle pedestrian infrastructure is limiting the number of cars in the neighborhood. And they obviously could do a lot more to do that. And actually, I didn't say this earlier, but actually quite like the building. I really like the large internal courtyard facing south. I think that's actually going to be public open space, which people might actually use. And I'm generally excited by the design of it, so that I'm hoping to figure out a way that we can make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gitzoni, are you good with all these? You're on
yeah, I mean, my comments here, it was originally a question, but as a comment here, I will reiterate my concern about the curb. I don't think that's appropriate, because I think it creates a dangerous condition. And I also think that the proper response to that dangerous condition is to ride in the same part of the road that vehicles are in, and vehicles have an attitude at that point that you're not where you're supposed to be. And I think that generally in multiple ways creates an unsafe situation. So I do not think that that's a improvement that should happen. And that's my main thing here. I like a lot of other aspects of this project, and I'd like to see it happen. I would also agree with Chair Keller's comments earlier about parking, but I think that later is probably when we're going to discuss those issues.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And Commissioner Dram.
Thank you. I think for the walkway between two buildings, if we could make it wider, it would be better, but it's better than nothing. And we can consider as open space. For closing the street, I'm not understanding the reason the same way as Chair Keller talked about it. And for project design, the only concern I have for project design on the main opening on the building, which is the main opening, I see some surfaces that like facing the sky. I'm afraid that it's going to be have some dust and doesn't look as good as these renderings after a while. Hopefully they have a system to clean it up or find something that the rainwater and those dirt can be covered. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Commissioner Zupko.
Nothing else to add.
Okay, very good. So I don't believe I missed anyone. Charlie, did I catch everyone that you could know?
Yes, I believe you did.
And Maru, are you okay with all those answers?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I think we're good. We thank you guys for your presentation and for your work and working with us. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
All righty. Now we're moving on to 9.3. So other than myself, was there something you're going to say, Charlie?
I was just going to ask if you could bear with me for a second while I change these people back to attendees.
Okay, while we're doing, am I the only one recusing on this item?
Well,
I am also.
Oh, Commissioner Goodson. Okay. So can we go ahead and do our recusal things while you do that?
Sure.
You're going to demote us as well.
Everybody's gone, so it's fine.
Okay, so if we can go ahead and have Commissioner Gitzoni.
Yes, I will need to recuse myself for this. One of the parties is a client of my employer's and thus a source of income.
Very good. So
I'm sorry, I need to bring Commissioner Chafe back because she is now in charge.
Oh, that's right. Or will soon be.
Yes, sorry. There she is. Okay.
Very good. Well, you'll demote
Commissioner Gitzoni will need to leave the meeting.
Yeah.
And I will text you, Commissioner Gitzoni, when this item is over so you can return.
Very good. And I also need to recuse myself because my residence at 6363 Christie Avenue is within 500 feet of the project.
And in your case, Chair Keller, I will change you to an attendee.
Thank you very much.
Participate as a member of the public.
And I will now turn the meeting over to Commissioner Chafe.
Thank you very much, Chair Keller, former Chair Keller. All right.
Hang on a second. Let me find, oh, there.
Can we have a short break?
Commissioner Chafe, I would say that's your call.
It sounds like Commissioner Dram needs a break. We will lose quorum, right? So we should go ahead and.
Yeah, we should all take a break if anybody's going to.
Great. Okay. So how about 5 minutes? Is that okay? Great. So 9:25.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So we'll get started with item 9.3, which is Bay Center Life Science Project. I'm assuming there's a staff presentation, so should we go directly to that?
Yes, Mira will be doing the staff presentation on this item.
Great.
Hit the screen, you can't unmute yourself, so pardon me for that. There we go. Okay, so this is a new project that you're seeing for the first time, and the project area or the vicinity is on the northern end of our town, and it's a site bounded by 65th and 64th Street and Lacoste on the west and Christie Avenue on the site. The site is developed with 3 existing buildings and a surface parking lot, which accommodates around 450 parking spaces. This is what the existing parcel configuration is, and that's how the 3 existing buildings sit on. The staff has received an application for a subdivision that divides the site from 3 parcels to 4 parcels, and this is how it looks. So the idea here is that the 3 existing buildings and the proposed building would all sit on their own individual parcels. In terms of the existing buildings, these are the building square footages and the building heights. Building A is a straight office building, whereas building B and C are both research and development or life science buildings. What they're proposing is a new 6-story, 96-foot tall building, which would accommodate 100,000 square feet of research and development, and a new separate 505 space parking garage. This is the site plan. These are the existing buildings. This is the proposed R&D building, and you have the parking garage. Lacoste is at the bottom, and Christie is at the top, with 64th on the right and 65th on the left. This is the circulation plan, essentially in terms of how the vehicles will be accessing the site. There are 3 access points being shown, one on 65th Street, actually 4, 2 along Lacoste, and 1 off 64th Street. The other routes that have been shown in yellow are bicycle, and in the blue are pedestrians. This is the floor plan for the R&D building. The top one is the first floor plan. The lobby and the amenity areas, the lobby is oriented towards facing building, the existing buildings. So if you look at it here, this is the location, and the lobby is located right here. And then, of course, this is the tenant space that goes up 6 floors. These are the elevations of the R&D building. And this kind of gives you what kind of building materials. Essentially, there's a terracotta colored fiber cement panels, and they're proposing a aluminum curtain wall system with flushed glazing. And then there are minor other things like the aluminum cover here, and of course, there's a service yard enclosure. These are elevations of the parking garage. They're proposing green screens on the east elevation and the south elevation. This is a concrete, typical garage building. This kind of shows you the renderings. There are additional renderings in the staff report, but I'm going to leave the applicant to show you the other renderings. But this is an aerial oversight. These are the existing buildings. This is the garage with green screens on the east and the south elevation, and this is the R&D building. And this is the view from I-80. This is your garage, and this is the R&D building. So in terms of the land use designation here, it is mixed use with non-residential. A variety of non-residential uses are permitted, including research and development, as well as, of course, office, retail, and hotels. On larger sites, more than one use is required, and on smaller sites, a single use may be permitted. I'll talk more about it in terms of the zoning district, which is also mixed use with residential. And it specifies on the sites of 1 to 5 acres, which is this site, the proposals require a CUP, and a mix of uses is required unless the applicant can convincingly demonstrate that a mix of uses is infeasible. The mix of uses here does not include residential, as the zoning is mixed use with non-residential. What the mix of uses here refers to are different other uses, essentially, which include retail, hotel, recreational uses, even manufacturing uses may be permitted. In terms of FAR, the base FAR is 2.0, with the bonus going up to 4. They are proposing 1.8, so they're within the base FAR. Height, the base height is 50, bonus height is 100. The R&D building is the taller of the two buildings, and it is at 96 feet, which means it requires 92 bonus points. So what this does is that they need 46 points to be earned by provision of affordable housing and 46 points to be earned by provision of community benefits. And like the earlier project that we discussed, all non-residential projects in terms of affordable housing development impact fee, they need to pay additional, and in this case, they will need to pay 90% more additional affordable housing fee at the time of permit issuance. So this calculates to, in today's dollars, in terms of impact fees, 1.9 million, and it's likely to be a little bit more at the time when they come in for a building permit. Community benefits, they need 46 points, and at this point, they have not identified how they plan to get this remaining 46 points for bonus. Parking, again, this is an R&D building, and like the previous project, we do the parking demand on a half-to-half basis. So the total estimated demand for the 3 existing and 1 new proposed building calculates to 1,082 spaces. And with the 10% premium that is allowed by our parking regulations, the maximum parking that is permitted is 1,190 spaces. What they are providing is, there is an off-site parking garage that is existing, and that provides parking to the existing 3 buildings in addition to the surface parking, and it's across the street from Christie Avenue. Then they are proposing the new garage, which contains 505, and most of the surface parking is removed through the proposal, but there is still 86 that remain. So what they are providing in terms of total parking provided is 1,186, and therefore the project does meet the city's standards for parking. Bicycle parking, 1 long-term, 1 short-term for every 10 auto parking spaces indicated as the estimated parking demand, and this calculates to 108 long-term and 108 short-term bicycle spaces. At this time, the applicant has not identified the location and number of bicycle parking spaces, but we expect that would be coming the next time you see this project. Loading, again, the requirement would be 2 medium loading spaces, and they have not yet identified the loading spaces in their proposal. Open space, very similar to the last project. They need to provide common open space, which is 5% of the gross floor area, of which 1% needs to be proposed, and this calculates to a total of 10,500 square feet of open space, of which at least 2,100 square feet is proposed. At this point, enough information has now been provided to determine compliance with the open space requirements. This project was reviewed by the staff at the Development Coordinating Committee, DCC, last month. The committee was unanimous in its critique of the garage design, especially in its lack of screening and lack of visual appeal, especially from Interstate I-80, where I forget how many number of cars that run every hour, but it's fairly large. One member also suggested that the elevations facing I-80 could be seen as an opportunity for public art. Public Works staff recommended that the project circulation be revised to eliminate all vehicular access off Lacoste and 65th Streets and direct all vehicles to use the 64th Street for access. And if a second entry and exit driveway is needed, then Christie Avenue should be explored as a point of entry that would connect the garage with the driveway between the existing buildings B and C. The need for surface parking that still remains around 80 plus spaces was questioned. And it was suggested that the parking garage should be designed to be adaptable so that it can be converted into commercial or residential uses should the parking demand be reduced over time. For the purpose, which they have not yet identified, proposal is suggested that they do a purpose at the corner of 65th and Lacoste Streets as a good location because of its proximity to the new pedestrian and bicycle bridge landing as part of the Ashby interchange improvements. So in terms of issues to be considered by the commission, does the commission agree with the staff's suggestion to restrict site access to 64th Street? Does the commission have any preferences as to how the bonus points should be obtained at this very early stage? And of course, the mix of users. What information does the applicant need to provide to demonstrate that the mix of users, that is a mix of non-residential users, is not feasible at this site? So that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions. And of course, the applicant does have a presentation for you.
Thank you very much, Maru. So fellow commissioners, anyone have a question for Maru at this point? Commissioner Simon says no. Commissioner Dram or Commissioner Zepko, any questions?
Nothing for me.
Okay, great.
So I see something that's, I think if we can go to the previous slide. Miro?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Which?
Like the last one that has question before that.
Oh, I see.
The one before the last.
The DC.
The comment, the comment number, the previous one?
Yeah.
So the comment number 4, can you explain that more, please?
This?
Yeah.
The need for surface parking?
Yeah.
So let me.
Okay, or the adaptable question.
Is it the need why the surface parking is being questioned?
Right.
Okay, I'm just going to go to the site plan. It's right here. So these are the surface parkings that are remaining.
Right.
And our planning regulations discourage any new or prohibit any new surface parkings. And as such, technically, these are not new surface parking. But the idea is that using land for surface parking is not its highest and best use, and that it could be used for providing open space or for other amenity space. So that was the idea behind questioning of why we still need these surface parking spaces.
Okay, yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions for Maru? Nope. Okay, great. Can we go to the applicant's presentation?
Yes, Commissioner Chafe, let me just promote them. believe I have promoted everyone whose name I was given as a member of the applicant team.
Great. Does someone want to start?
Sure. I'm Tom Wagner. I'm with Harvest Properties. We've owned that property with Bay Center project with our institutional partners since 2007. As Maru mentioned, one building is remaining is 100% office. Building B has been a life science building back from the Chiron days and then Novartis, and now our new tenant, Agenus, is doing their TIs and we'll be moving into there in October. And then the building at the far, I guess call it the north end, is the building that we are currently converting to life science use and just getting started on that process. And then, so our goal with the development was we spent a lot of time trying to figure out where the best place was to situate the building on the site. We looked at options as how we could potentially do it perpendicular to the freeway and put it between buildings. But in order to get an efficient building and get floor plans, the building ended up where we're showing it now, which is really the widest part of the site, and the site narrows as you look at it as you go towards the north, which is where you move towards the parking garage. The site gets narrower, and then obviously down at the other end it gets even narrower. Our goal was to obviously design a functional life science building that looks probably called a little bit more modern than the existing buildings, but yet give it a nod towards the project, so it still felt like it was part of the overall project, which is we tried to achieve with some of the coloring and that sort of thing with the building. Our other goal was to try to maintain some sight lines to the bay for at least building B and C, or what we call 6455, the middle building, and 6475, the building to the north, which is why the parking garage we put somewhere kind of between the two buildings so that at least both buildings still have partial views of the bay. The first building, the 100% office building, obviously would not have that. Currently the project has two access points, one from 64th and one from 65th. So those two access points are what is reflected in the new development. And then we have suggested adding the two other access points along Lacoste to access the parking garage, et cetera. We have not addressed the parking garage elevation, really because we're really looking for some input from the city as far as what they would like to see there. Obviously, I heard from Commissioner Keller in the last presentation that not a fan of green screen, so there's certainly other options. And I think one realistic option is what staff has suggested, is potentially an opportunity for some public art there, or to do something that's obviously makes the parking garage less parking garage and something more dramatic as far as what you see as you drive by on the freeway, because you do have, as Maru mentioned, many cars going going both directions on that freeway, and a lot of them sitting in traffic, and we'd be sitting right in front of that parking garage for some time every day. So that's been our goal. The building's been designed to meet, call it life science standards with larger floor plates, height, required height between floor plates, et cetera. So that is where we're at. And then I know we have DGA, our architect, on board that could walk you through some more of the, call it the design elements of the new building.
Hi, I am Samuel Capps, and I'm with DGA Architects, and I'll walk you through a few of the kind of the design elements, as Tom mentioned. So, as he mentioned, the idea was really to create a building that has a very modern, clean, up-to-date, yet timeless appearance, but one that also addresses the existing buildings on the site, which are glass and red brick. So to that, there are elements within the building in the form of the shroud features that feature a fiber cement panel, which is a large format cladding. Let me get to some renderings here. That would be in a color that complements the brick, so that there's a relationship there in a sense of a campus and a community on this site. So this is the view. This is really the first approach to the site. So this is coming down from down Christie Avenue, looking west down 64th Street. And so the building really has kind of a prominent corner there that I think brings a nice appeal to that end. And then as you come down 64th and turn into the site, you're drawn to the entry at the end of the building where the lobby is. And this lobby also aligns with the existing courtyard, the courtyard between the two existing buildings, 6455 and 6425. So the south building and the middle building. And we did this really to address kind of pedestrian circulation so that the primary way that one approaches this building is not necessarily by vehicles, or that it's not the predominant way that you experience entry into the building. So the idea is that the entry aligns with this courtyard so that there is a pedestrian experience that can be had from Christie Avenue, and creates a welcoming site. There's another view of that entry with the garage in the background there. There's another view back towards, this is looking south now at the elevation. So a nice prominent handsome building that's right along the freeway there. And there's a view directly from I-80 looking north. And as Tom mentioned, the garage is also located along the freeway, so we would be interested to hear your comments in what might be the best way to address that and make that an attractive feature. And just a quick overview of the materials. Again, the solid panels are kind of a large format fiber cement panel in kind of a terracotta or brick color. And the bulk of the building is a very clean, modern curtain wall that would have where we would pursue having the clearest glass that we could. And so it's a strong sense of transparency and lightness, and generally nice materials all around, in the column covers, even in the service yard and in the mechanical screen on the roof. And then this is the green screen that is being proposed on the south and east ends of the garage. And I think that's it. I'd like to see if any of our DGA team would have anything else to add.
I would also just add that as part of doing once we do move forward to new development, we would incorporate an overall landscape upgrade to the entire project, which would include the courtyards between the buildings, the frontage of the project along Christie, and obviously all the internal landscape areas. So it would be a complete refresh of the landscape on the project.
Great, thank you. Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'll turn it over to commissioners for any clarifying questions from the applicant.
Very
ahead.
specific.
Yeah.
Do we have to keep the surface parkings?
Well, I mean, obviously the surface parking is working into our parking count. I mean, if we were to get rid of the surface parking, we'd probably end up having to add another deck to the parking garage, which wouldn't necessarily be ideal to make up for that. We've tried to manage the parking garage down a little bit just so it doesn't completely dwarf the building C and building B that it would be sitting in front of. And I would also add that over in front of building C, part of that parking, that entrance from 65th Street to coming down on the cost is we do need to get service, be able to service the service yard and the tenants in that project, which is where that arrow is being circulated. So that's the other reason that we've tried to maintain those entries over there. And it lends itself to put some parking in there so that the tenant in building C would have some, call it immediately accessible parking for visitors or whatever, however they wanted potentially to use that.
So, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? No? Okay. I have a few questions. So I wanted to ask about the mix of use. So could you tell us a little bit more about why you think it's infeasible to have a mix of uses on this property?
Well, our challenge is obviously the site is tight, so I don't even know. Honestly, you know, with our lobbies and call it on building A, B, and C that are along Christie Avenue, you know, don't really lend themselves to having like call it a retail use in the building or something like that, because those are already built out with office and either occupied as in buildings A and B or in building C to be occupied office space. And then as far as the new building, building D, I guess I don't know what mixed use we would put in there. I mean, there's no room to put, call it, you know, like a hotel on the site based on how the site's built out at this point. Unless there's some other sort of mixed use that somebody's thinking about that. But I just think it's more just the site is so tight by the time we put a fourth building there in a parking garage.
Okay, thank you. And then on parking, I had a question if you know the occupancy rate of the current offsite parking garage.
Well, for the last 2 years, it's been relatively empty, obviously. And then prior to that, we had major vacancy in building B for the last 2 years before. Building B was where Zymergen was originally going to go at one point and never moved into the building. And then we terminated their lease and they moved to the campus where they moved to over on Novartis. So that building has been, or that parking structure across the street has been relatively unused for called the last 4 years.
Okay, great, thank you. And then there was a comment from staff about loading, and I believe need for 2 medium loading spaces. Did you have any thoughts about where that might go?
I have not. What, as far as loading, I guess, what is staff talking about? Loading the building and the service yards, or what sort of loading are we talking about?
I can respond to that. Our planning regulations, in addition to having parking regulations, they also have loading requirements. And depending on, there's, I believe, 3 different sizes of loading spaces, small, medium, and large. And the number and the size depend on how big the building is. I believe in this case, the regulations call Miru, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was 2 large loading spaces.
2 medium.
Or 2 medium, okay, thank you. 2 medium loading spaces that this building is supposed to have. Now, I would further note that the planning regulations do stipulate that that requirement can be modified by the Planning Commission in its approval of the project, depending on the circumstances. So if the Planning Commission feels that more or fewer or different size loading spaces are appropriate in this case, then the commission has the discretion to approve that. But the starting point, according to our regulations, is 2 medium loading spaces for an R&D building of this size. And it's supposed to be, you know, like loading docks that serve the building, as you saw on the previous project. The Emery Station Overland, I believe, has 3 loading spaces designed into that building.
Got it.
Similar to that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we've added loading to building C where we showed you the service yard, and there's the loading next to that. Likewise, we have loading for building B where a Genesis is going in. We do not have, there's never been any loading at building A. And then building D would have loading over by its service yard, which is over off 65th Street. So we will have loading, and you know, addition to that, we've got the main drive-in through between building D and building A, where, you know, loading, it's a, you know, drop off for pedestrians, and you could also do have loading there for you know, at least small loading for like FedEx, UPS, that sort of thing.
Okay, great, thanks. And then could you talk a little bit more about the open space that you have planned?
So yeah, I mean, all the open space is, you know, basically shown in the green. We've got the existing courtyards between the existing 3 buildings that are existing that would be upgraded and obviously modified for ADA and more upgraded so they're more pleasant for people to sit in and actually use them for working outdoors, et cetera, as that's becoming obviously a bigger thing with all office campuses. So we really want to enhance that area. There's quite a bit of open space between building D, A, and B that would all be new loading spaces, which that's all surface parking right now. That would all be turned into open space. And then there would be some additional open space between building C, B, and the parking garage, where right now we're showing a basketball court there, but that could be, you know, several different things, or more outdoor seating, or whatever turns out to be the appropriate use as we get further into the design. The one thing we had thought about is opposite before we saw staff's comments about wanting to thinking the public open space could be over at 65th and Lacoste. We have bioswales over there. One of the issues with the site is we're obviously working with existing grades on the property that we can't modify a lot because we've got an existing buildings on there. So the site tends to drain to the north to that 65th and Lacoste area. So that made a lot of sense to put a bioswale down in the bottom corner there to pick up some of the additional runoff. In fact, DGA, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're putting that bioswale in conjunction with building C to accommodate runoff from the new service yard, et cetera, that's being built as part of that project. We had thought about public open space at actually being potentially up at Christie and 64th Street, where right now there's the Emery go-around bus stop there, and there's, you know, always been, you know, beginning at least towards the end of the day and middle of the day, people lined up on the sidewalk waiting for the Emery go-around. We figured where we currently have a fountain that obviously uses water, that's probably not the best use of water, that we potentially redo that area and create some open space there so that there's seating and which would be open to people waiting for the bus or what have you, but would be some public open space up on that corner.
Okay, great, thank you. That's useful. And that kind of leads into another question around sustainability. Have you thought about any sort of sustainability elements in building, in the building of building D or other aspects of the site? So you mentioned bioswales, but is there any other sustainability work that we should be aware of at this point in the design process?
Well, I mean, our goal would obviously be to do what we do in any new development today, is to gear building D towards, you know, LEED Silver, LEED Gold, and, you know, have the, obviously, all the design elements. I mean, since we're starting from scratch, we'd have state-of-the-art HVAC equipment and all the stuff that meets Title 24 and meets, sustainability requirements. So we would incorporate, as much of that as we reasonably can into Building D.
Great, okay. I think that's all my questions. Just checking one more time. Anyone else follow-up questions?
Sure, Commissioner Chafe, I have one. If you don't mind. So I know there was a staff discussion about the number of entrances and exits to the site, or specifically restricting site access to 64th Street. Can we just go over that again? I feel like we haven't really covered that in the presentation here.
Would you like staff to respond to that, or you're asking the applicant?
I know I'd love to hear from the developer. So it seems like there's many entrances to the project, which seems like not great for keeping pedestrians safe and for car circulation. Are there any ways of limiting that? Maybe staff can respond to it.
Well, I could just say that I think the genesis of the Public Works comment had to do with anticipated future changes in this area, specifically regarding pedestrian and bicycle access. I think there's a vision for enhancements along 65th Street for pedestrian and bicycle access to get to the new bridge over the freeway, and also possibly a pedestrian bicycle route along Lacoste Street that could ultimately continue beside the freeway all the way down to Powell Street. And so the vision was to kind of keep Lacoste free of car traffic so that it could eventually be transformed into more of a linear park/bikeway/pedestrian corridor. And therefore, it was suggested by Public Works staff that the primary vehicular access to the project be limited to 64th, and if additional access were needed from Christie, and where that second arrow is off of Christie, that blue arrow pointing to the left, it's the next one up. No, further up. Further up. I'm sorry, I guess I can't.
Further up.
Between building B and C.
Yeah. Yes. That could become a driveway into the parking garage. Now, I realize that would, of course, take away some pedestrian space, take away the basketball court, which would have to be relocated. But in the interest of keeping vehicular traffic off of Lacoste, that could be an alternate way to get into the parking garage. So those were the Public Works staff's suggestions at the DCC meeting. I believe those were conveyed to the applicant, were they not, Bureau?
Yes, I mean, through the staff report, they read that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Bureau.
So I guess that's a question for the applicant. Do you have any reaction to those suggestions?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, this 64th or 65th Street entrance is pretty critical to the loading down at that end for Building C. If we could figure out a way to circulate a truck through there and take it back out that way, we could potentially eliminate the Lacoste exit, which is a new exit. That one's not existing. None of the exits along Lacoste exist right now. I think putting one through Building B and C off of Christie would be very difficult. I mean, that area is not honestly that wide, and I think that would get a little complicated. But and then we do have grade changes through the project, which right now this site plan addresses by getting a car all the way from, call it 64th Street all the way to the other side of the project at 65th, and then circulating them back through the project to get them all the way back out on that side again too. Just feels awkward, but I guess those would be my initial reactions, and having at least one entrance off of Lacoste to immediately access the parking garage feels the most efficient, but obviously we can certainly talk about this further with staff.
Okay, great, thank you. Looks like we've had all our questions addressed at this point. So I think now we go to public comment, correct, Charlie?
Yes, that is correct. Let me double check my email to see if I have any speaker cards. I do not. I see one raised hand in the audience, and that is Stephen Keller, who will be allowed 3 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Keller.
Thank you, Director Bryant. I'm Stephen Keller. I live at 6363 Christie Avenue. My living room window actually overlooks this project, and I have lived here for 20 years. So I'd just like to say, I think the parking garage should be screened on all 4 sides. And as I said earlier, live screens should not be used as they'll never grow enough to screen the structure. Under issue to be considered, number 1, parking access should not only be provided on 64th Street, as it is partially a residential street and should not carry the burden of parking the entire property. Access from 65th could easily be used, as 65th will become a dead-end street should LaCoste be closed as desired. Access off of Christie Avenue should not be used, as it would remove an existing and maturely landscaped public open space. Access drives can be easily provided from 64th and 65th Street, as it currently is, by removing some, if not all, of the unnecessary surface parking lot, as there is ample parking, 1,100 to be exact, in the existing and new structure. To comply with the mixed use component, I have a couple suggestions that is, even if it's small active ground floor space, could be included in the southeast corner of the new building. This could be used for a community membership bike self-repair shop, or similarly a dog spa, a rentable makerspace, a rentable community room, or a cafe, to just mention a few ideas. All sidewalks should comply with the city design guidelines within a pedestrian priority overlay zone, which calls for 12-foot sidewalks, corridor with an 8-foot of pedestrian pathway and 4-foot of landscaping zone. I feel that all loading should be off-street, that should be required. You can consider adding solar to the roof structure, to the parking roof, on the roof of the parking structure, and that all open space requirements should be met. Those are my comments, and thank you for your project. I think it's really good overall.
Thank you, Mr. Keller, for your comments. Any other public comments, Charlie?
No, there are no other raised hands, and I'll take one final look at my email. I have no further online speaker cards.
Okay, great. So we will close the public comment period, and I believe now we'll go to commissioner comments and feedback. So I'm just going to go in the order that I can find people. So Commissioner Zepko, do you have any feedback or comments? And I should say also, we do have 4 questions from staff. We can refer to those. I don't know, maybe it would be helpful to bring them up. So Commissioner Zepko, go ahead.
Oh, I have nothing to add.
Okay, great. And then Commissioner Simons.
Thanks, Chair. I have a couple of comments here. I guess. Well, the lights in the building just turned off.
Whoa! Welcome to City Hall.
Time to go home, everybody. So I'll just run down the list here. I think I agree with my general question about site access is that we should be, this seems like a large number of entrances to the project in general, and I'd love to see the applicant make a good faith effort to reduce that as much as possible. I think my most important place I would like to see entrances reduced is along LaCoste, because it seems like a really great opportunity to connect Emeryville to the bike path, to the Bay Trail. I think the life science building's fine. The garage needs to be screened in some interesting way. I know there can be issues with doing big, interesting things to look at along the freeway. So I think the applicant or the city should get in touch with Caltrans as quickly as possible to understand what those restrictions are. I'd also like to see some good faith effort around some sort of mixed use space. Maybe the applicant can talk to neighbors about what business type might be useful to the neighborhood, which could then be offered at very, very low rent to the point where it could actually be feasible. And then I don't have too many suggestions around bonus points. I think this is a tricky area. I imagine there's real air quality and noise concerns. So I imagine a lot of things we frequently look for maybe don't make a ton of sense here, but good presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Simons. Commissioner Dram.
Thank you. I think for the first question, as Mr. Clare or Chair Clare talked about the closing the 65th Street and having the entrance from there, I think that's a really good suggestion. For project design, I think the main building looks fine, but I hope we could see some community purposes, like any spaces that there are a lot of apartments around there that can go there and use it. And that's for the second question. And the parking garage next to highway, this is our presentation. This is how we present Emeryville every day. I think we need to be more concerned about that presentation. But the main building, I think, looks fine. As modern, it fits well, it works with the other building. And for mixed use, I talked about it, I think. And for the bonus point, I think we need to have the open spaces for sure and remove some of those surface parkings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Dram. Okay, I'll go ahead. So to respond to the questions here, so initially I thought that the suggestion in question 1 around 64th Street was good, but then the more we went through the project, it almost seemed to me that building D and the parking garage were switched because of, if all the cars are coming in from the south, then yeah, they'd have to cut through the majority of the site to get to the parking garage. So it seems awkward. What I heard from the applicant was that it's not super feasible to switch the locations of the parking garage and building D because of the geometry of the site. So in that case, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to only have the majority of cars come in from 64th. Like Commissioner Simon said, I do agree with restricting the number of entrances, especially from Lacoste. So maybe that means coming in through Christie in the location that Charlie pointed to, the second arrow up from the bottom, from the south, or from 65th potentially. In terms of the design, the applicant's probably already aware of the bird-friendly or bird-safe glass regulations, but it seems like that would come into play for this proposed building. For the garage, I definitely agree with the suggestion to involve public art as much as possible on as many sides of the garage as possible if it has to be built. I do think that we heard that the existing parking is not being used to its full extent right now, even though we've been in strange times. To be honest, going forward, it doesn't seem to me like this project is going to need as much parking as is being asked for. And so I would really, really encourage the project applicants to consider lowering the amount of proposed parking. I know it's difficult, but I really think that it's necessary for this project. On that point, I would strongly encourage removing all surface parking from the site. I think that would free up a lot of great space, as many people have pointed out. And the surface parking just seems incongruous with the direction that Emeryville is going. In terms of mix of uses, I think there's been a lot of good suggestions. I definitely think it's feasible, and we've seen it in most other buildings that have been proposed recently, that there is some other use at the ground floor. As has been mentioned, Ashby Interchange is going to change the use of this area. Lots of opportunities to bring more more businesses in and have them be used by people who are passing by and who also live in the neighborhood as well. In previous presentations, we've heard about the need for a cafe to have like a hangout area, and especially if there is going to be more open space there, for example. For bonus points, again, building off of that, I think, we desperately need housing in Emeryville, so adding to housing, housing funds would be wonderful, but also open space. And again, this site seems like it has some potential to add additional open space. I think I had one other comment here. Let me just see. And then just in general, it's great to hear that the landscape would be upgraded and that you're thinking about bioswales. So I'd look forward to hearing more details about that in future sessions. So that's it from me. Just checking one more time. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to follow up with? No? Okay. And Maru, do you feel like you have the feedback needed?
Yes.
Oh, Commissioner Dram.
If for parking garage also, we can consider to play with the form and not have a like flat surface, maybe some like back and forth in the elevation next to choosing like any kind of a screen. That would be very helpful and make the project nicer, I think.
Okay, thank you. Maria, do you have the feedback you need?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay, and then I'll just check with the applicant too. Do you feel like you got the feedback that's useful to you right now? Any further feedback that you'd like to get from the commission at this point?
No, I think that's great. Look forward to coming back to you guys with addressing some of these things and working with staff in the meantime to address some of these items.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so I believe that's it for this item. Charlie, do you want to bring back those that were recused?
Certainly, I tried to bring back Chair Keller. I think he is on his way. There he is. And I will text Commissioner Guizzoni and Vice Chair Mendez that they can now return also.
Thank you, Commissioner Chafe. Good job. I think you're a chair in training. That's very
nice
good.
Having power for however long that was.
Careful what you asked for.
Let me say you did an excellent job. I was impressed.
Very good. Okay, with that item being closed, we're on to item 10, which is Planning Commissioner comments. Is everyone back? Do we have Commissioner Mendez
I just texted them, so.
Okay, let's give them a minute. And you can demote the presenters?
I'm doing my best.
Okay, yeah, it takes a while. And Erica's coming.
I'm here.
Yay. See if we can get Mr. Guizzoni back. Unless he went to bed. There he is. Hey, everyone's here. Okay, so we're at item 10 for Planning Commissioner comments. Are there any comments that the commissioners would like to make? Commissioner Chafe.
I just wanted to thank the commissioner who sent the parking survey and the parking articles through Charlie to the rest of the commission. I thought that, this is something that I think we've been talking about piece by piece as projects come up, and we often give feedback about the amount of parking that is proposed. I've had a hard time coming up with firm numbers to get a sense of the issue. In some cases we can ask for how much parking is being used of existing structures, but it's hard to add it up over the entire area. And I thought that report did a nice job of starting to give a sense of just how much parking exists and how little of it is used, and to be honest, what a waste of space it is. So it's something that I think we should keep talking about, and I don't know if anyone else has an idea about how we could do that in a more sort of cohesive way, but yeah, I'll stop there.
Very good. No, and Vice Chair Mendez.
Yeah, to add to that, it kind of got me thinking too, as in my apartment complex, we have a parking garage that is shared with a business. And so tenants can park there from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. But then during the day, a business can park there. And so maybe having something in our guidelines that allows more of that, more of a shared parking space with like an apartment complex and a business, I think that can start to move us in the right direction. Because if you think about it, a lot of businesses, they're not using their parking at night, and that's when residents want to use the parking, is when they're home at night. So that's just an idea to throw out there.
No, I think you're very right. I think, there's always been a conversation of unbundled parking. And then there's also that of shared parking. And I don't think that there's been enough research done on it. And I don't think there's been enough pursuing of how that could happen. Just a minute, Charlie. I think, a good example is when we were talking about Biomed Realty. And I mean, Charlie, do you feel like we're breaking any Brown Act? Or?
I feel like you're getting into a topic that's not listed on the agenda.
Okay, yeah. So, okay. So I what I would almost like to think of, if we have a time when the commission doesn't have a packed agenda, that maybe we bring an item like this up, because I'd like for the city to hire someone to do a job. I think Transform did a really good job on my building, and to find out, really what is the level. So maybe a future agenda, you're talking about June didn't look too busy. So maybe put on there a discussion, because parking is always an issue on every meeting we have, whether it's one project or 3 projects, we're always talking about parking. And I'm thinking that, Fair and Peers may be using archaic methods into measuring what they're giving us. So I'd like to have a discussion where we could actually get in depth and talk about this. How's the other commissioners feel about that? So I'm seeing Commissioner Simons, Commissioner Dram, Commissioner Chabe, Commissioner Mendez, and Commissioner Gitzoni indicating positive on that. So because those don't all show on the audience, I'm mentioning them by name, that it seems like a large majority of the commission would like to discuss parking.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to see it by June at the latest. And maybe not May, because I don't know that I'm going to make the May meeting.
Well, I will not be at the June meeting, so that could be an issue.
Maria can handle it.
Okay.
There may not be a June meeting, I think.
Well, I'm saying that I'm hearing that there's nothing on the agenda. Maybe we put this on the agenda and we have a meeting about that. Well, even if that's the only item. I think the commission would really like to talk about parking, and you're not allowing us to do that now because of the Brown Act.
Well, we'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
And it doesn't have to be in depth. You don't have to do a lot of reports. We just want an agenda item where we can freely talk about what we feel about parking, what we'd like to see.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Go Commissioner Gitzoni.
Yeah, I'd like to extend from that a little bit, Chair Keller. I think that we have different topics that come up that I get the feeling it would be productive for us to share ideas on sometimes, but we do want to be adhering to the Brown Act. And I think it might make sense to occasionally identify specific topics as something that we could just put on an agenda, say this is a recurring issue and it's worth exploring the concept, and just kind of having that as an informational discussion that's open to the public, where we share our thoughts on that topic. And I'm not sure, Charlie and Christy, if that would be something that would be permissible or not, but if it is, I think it could be very productive for the group.
I love the idea.
Well, I think it would be permissible if the items were listed on the agenda and we knew specifically what the items were.
Correct.
Okay, so at the commissioner comments, I think that's a time we could say, I think I'd like to discuss this, since
Yes.
we're doing parking.
Yes, so, as long as you don't get into the actual discussion at that time.
So, Commissioner Gitzoni, if you'd like to create a list of something at our next meeting during commissioner comments, mention what you'd like to see us be able to discuss.
Okay, so I'll just be prepared to mention what we might want to talk about on the June.
No, you bring it up next month if you want. Oh yeah, by next month, and if the June agenda doesn't look like we have anything, that might be a perfect time to talk about things we've been wanting to talk about.
Are you, Chair Keller, are you talking about something in addition to the topic we just discussed, or?
Yeah, if you have other issues that you'd like to discuss, it seems like
I
our
will
June.
definitely be able to come up with some, yeah.
Okay. And anyone else? No? Okay, I just want to thank everyone for their hard work, and definitely had some long nights and some meaty items, and I think everyone's doing good work, and I just want to appreciate everyone's efforts and their engagement, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
If we don't have anything else, we will call this adjourned at 10:25. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.